Hello and welcome back, guys. We're now starting a new story, Born a Year Early, by Jace_is_dead. You can find author's profile link in the description. Let's begin chapter 1. Growing up isn't easy. When Izuku was 4, his life was pretty okay. He didn't have a dad as far as he knew, but he didn't think that was terrible. After all, he only needed his mother. But all good things come to an end. I'm sorry, Miss Midoriya, but your son is quirkless. That's when everything changed. Are you sure, doctor? I mean, there isn't anything. Inko asked, using her own quirk to pull a figurine towards herself. I'm afraid so. With how weak your quirk and your husband's quirk are, it makes sense, even though only 20% of people are quirkless. Inko nodded and said her goodbyes, leaving the doctor's office with her son in tow. Mommy, Izuku said, looking up at her in the car, do you think I can still be a hero? Her eyes widened, and she pulled the car into a lot and parked. Honey, she thought about it for a moment before answering, I think you can still be a hero. She saw her son perk up before she continued, but not like All Might. He almost started crying, but she picked him up from his seat and hugged him. You're going to be better. After their talk, Inko decided that if she was going to support her son, he needed to take lessons on how to fight and defend himself, especially from bullies now that everyone seemed to know. Izuku, do you want to start taking classes? Inko asked as she made dinner while he set the table. Like what? Oh. Will it help me be a hero? He asked excitedly. It would. He nodded vigorously, and she smiled. She wanted to start off with something that would be good for running away and hiding from people first, so at the age of 4, he started gymnastics and parkour. She was proud that her son didn't seem to mind that he wasn't getting into fighting right away. It was all going fine until he came home one day with a long cut on his arm. She asked him who did it, but he didn't tell her and only looked down sadly at himself. Honey, did this happen while you were trying to practice? She saw her son straighten up and begin to talk quickly. No. It was this other kid. I had been trying to run away like you said and was halfway up a tree when they grabbed onto my arm with their quirk and it cut me. But the teacher said it was an accident, so I didn't want to get the other in trouble. He explained, whispering at the end. She smiled sadly at her son. He was being a hero even to people who didn't deserve it. It's okay, honey. I'm going to show you how to fix this up, okay? After all, a hero needs to know first aid. She declared, carrying him to the bathroom. She was glad that she was a nurse, so it was a simple few stitches and cleanup. At the age of 6, Inko decided it was time for him to begin other activities. The bullying hadn't stopped, and her son was already getting in trouble all the time since they blamed him for it. So she decided it was time he learned to fight back. I think you should start some other classes. What do you think? Inko asked as she helped bandage another wound. Really? Can I choose? How many am I allowed to do? Inko smiled as he talked excitedly about all the things he could learn. At the age of 6, he was in gymnastics, aikido, hapkido, judo, jiu-jitsu, and a parkour class. She thought it was too much for him since he was so young, but he was so excited and had handled everything well enough that she decided it was okay for him to take so many classes. Since he started not being at home so much, Inko also decided to start taking more shifts. Money wasn't an issue, of course, they had enough to be fine for a while. She loved Izuku a lot, but nursing was always her passion. Izuku, honey, I'm not going to be home so much anymore, and I'll be getting back a lot later. Is that okay? She asked as she walked him to his school. It's okay, Mommy. My teachers offer me rides all the time. Inko was glad that he had such amazing teachers. She had known Haku and Sakura for 2 years now and was pleased that they also offered the fighting classes to teach him. The only new teacher he seemed to get was a man named Akabane, a very calm old man who had a fighting quirk that allowed him to see all the openings in a fight. Okay, honey, as long as you're sure. It was Saturday, or as Izuku called it, free day. He had classes every day of the week except Saturday. His teachers thought it was because he wanted to play on those days, but it was actually because it gave him time to try out his own fighting style that he was developing with all the classes he took. He quickly learned that every fighter has a beat, like music, that they all followed, and if you could mess up the beat or keep yours unpredictable, it would make the fight easier. He also used these days to learn anything else that could help him. He had been learning how technology and devices work to learn hacking, support building, and how to find weaknesses in any weapon he encountered. He had also picked up sewing. He didn't know why, but he found it fun and comforting. After all, sewing was just like stitches, so he used it as an excuse even though he knew his mother didn't mind. He was, of course, still interested in heroes, but he didn't have any All Might merchandise yet. He didn't see the point in liking him if he couldn't actually help the kid. He also realized that, being quirkless, All Might didn't support quirkless people and often seemed to look down on them. Izuku found himself drawn to a new hero, someone who had recently graduated but was already making waves as an underground hero. This hero had faced off against quirkless individuals numerous times, and Izuku was fascinated by the mystery surrounding him. No one knows what his quirk is, but from the videos I've seen, it seems to have something to do with his eyes, he mused aloud while dismantling an old computer from the junkyard. All of the attackers seem to lose control of their quirks unless it's a mutant type. As he finally opened the back part of the computer and began tinkering with the motherboard, an idea struck him. "Wait, that's it," he exclaimed, rushing to grab one of his notebooks. He quickly wrote down his thoughts, realizing that the hero could erase people's quirks as long as he could see them. That's why his hair floats. He's using his quirk. He continued jotting down notes about the hero and how his capture weapon helped keep villains in his line of sight. Later that night, Inko returned home around midnight and was surprised to find Izuku still awake, working intently on his computer while writing in his notebook. She expected to hear him mumbling, but he was silent, his lips pressed together as if he were trying not to speak. It wasn't the first time she had noticed this behavior. She had initially thought he was just having an off day, but now it was clear that something was bothering him. "I'm surprised you aren't mumbling," she said with a nervous laugh, concerned that her son might still be facing bullying. Oh. Sorry, I must have been really focused." Izuku replied, though she could tell he was lying. He had a habit of touching his neck when he was not being truthful. Inko nodded, but her concern lingered. "Izuku, honey, are you being bullied again?" His startled reaction caused him to accidentally cut himself on a piece of the computer, but he quickly wrapped it and looked at her nervously. "Why would you say that, Mom? Everyone pretty much leaves me alone, but it's fine, really." Despite his convincing tone, Inko knew better. "Okay, Izuku, whatever you say." Fast forward to Izuku at 12 years old, he always seemed to have a lot on his plate. His mother worried about him, but with her work shifts and his lessons, they rarely discussed it. He excelled in his classes, but the hurtful words from his classmates echoed in his mind, making him feel inadequate. As he headed to class, he practiced parkour on the empty streets. The couple teaching him had combined their classes, knowing his goals. They had invited him to meet their son and his friends, which puzzled him, but he was open to it. Jogging and humming to his music, he was unaware of the group of kids behind him until he picked up the pace, jumped over a trash can, and landed on a bench before flipping off it and landing in a crouch. The group erupted in applause. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to bother you guys," he said automatically as they approached him. "Are you kidding?" "That was awesome," exclaimed a boy with straight black hair and sharp teeth, his eyes sparkling with excitement. "Sorry, I'm really bad with people," Izuku admitted, feeling a bit shy. "No worries, man. Neither is our buddy Kirishima here," a girl with pink hair and horns assured him, draping an arm over the black-haired boy. "Yeah, he gets all shy," teased a blonde boy with a lightning bolt hairstyle, nudging Kirishima, who blushed in response. "Wait, I've seen you somewhere before," said another boy with large elbows, observing Izuku as he finally stood up straight. The group jumped back in surprise at his height. Whoa dude. How much older are you? Kirishima asked. I'm only 12, Izuku replied, blushing slightly. Oh no, we didn't mean it like that. You're our senpai then, the blonde clarified, waving his hands. We never even introduced ourselves. My name's Ashido Mina, this is Kaminari Denki, Shiro Hanta, and Kirishima Aijiro. Ashido introduced, pointing to each of them. Oh. My name is Midoriya Izuku. I should probably go, I need to meet up with my teachers, he said, gesturing behind him. Oh right, didn't mean to keep you, Midoriya-senpai. Have a good day, they called as he began running again, feeling a warm blush at the title. As he entered the training area, Haku greeted him enthusiastically. What's wrong, honey? You look flustered, Sakura said, walking up to him as he caught his breath. There were these kids, and they said I was cool, then started calling me senpai, he exclaimed, sounding as if he had just witnessed something shocking. Oh, Midoriya, they just thought you were cool. We warned the kids to calm down a little around you too, Sakura reassured him. Yeah. Don't worry about it, Aijiro will love you, Haku added, and Izuku looked up in surprise. Kirishima Aijiro, he asked, recalling one of the boys from earlier. That was one of the kids that he started, but was interrupted as the group of 4 ran up to them. Hi, moms. Oh, Midoriya-senpai. I didn't know my moms were your teachers. Aijiro exclaimed, making the 2 adults smirk. Aijiro, you didn't tell us you knew little Midoriya here. Sakura teased, still smirking at Izuku. Oh, we met on our way here. He was awesome. Aijiro gushed, causing Izuku to blush and try to hide his face in his hands. Okay, that's enough, Haku giggled, leading Izuku to the training area. He still needs to work if he's going to be here. Izuku nodded, changing into spandex shorts, a tank top, and some protective gear before returning to stretch. He smiled slightly as he watched the others having fun. He wished he had something like that, but he was happy that none of them were alone. Okay, Midoriya, since it's one of your off days, how about doing some of your normal runs and then whatever you want? Haku began her own routine. Sounds good, Haku-sensei. She nodded and returned to her work while Izuku started his run. Hey, you 4. You might want to watch this. Haku called to the other kids. They looked over just in time to see Izuku jump over a few foam boxes before leaping from the tallest one. He reached up, grabbed the edge of a cement wall, and pulled himself up. Wow, that's so cool. Mina cheered. Izuku blushed but focused on the task at hand. He ran along the edges, climbing higher until he reached a section with only a railing. He balanced there for a moment, took a few breaths, then crouched and jumped off, landing in a roll. Wow. Holy CRP. He blushed even more before standing up and catching a water bottle thrown to him. Good job, Midoriya. Go get some water, then we'll go from there. To say Izuku was exhausted would be an understatement, he felt completely drained. Transitioning from only talking to his teachers, mother, and Bakugas to engaging with 4 new, excitable people was a lot. When he walked into the house, he saw his mother sitting on the couch watching TV. He flopped onto her lap with a sigh. Hi, honey, how was today? She asked, laughing. It's not funny. They were so talkative and nice, he complained. Isn't that good though? A change from everything. I mean, yeah, but it was just a lot. They were really nice, though. He smiled up at her as she pet his hair, noticing how much longer it had gotten. Oh, do you want a haircut? It has been a while. Izuku sat up and saw his hair was getting closer to the bottom of his ears. Maybe. I'm not sure, I kind of like it long. She smiled and nodded. Of course, sweetie. Now let's go ahead and make dinner. Honey. Get up. I'll be leaving soon. Inko called from the kitchen as she got dressed. I know, Mom. Izuku shouted while jumping down the stairs and landing in the living room, dressed in shorts and a tank top for his run. You look amazing, honey, she said, turning him around to see his hair in a small ponytail. Now, here's some money you might need. Get groceries on the way back, and make sure to stay hydrated. She kissed him on the cheek, making him laugh. I know, Mom, I know. Have a good day, and make sure to tell Grandma Chio I said hello. Grandma Chio volunteered at his mom's hospital. I love you. Love you too. She went out the door, heading to work while Izuku prepared for his run. He grabbed his phone, headphones, and a water bottle before heading out with his keys. After his run, he decided to go to the beach. He had been working on cleaning it up to build muscle outside of lessons. Once he arrived, he set his stuff down and began humming as he picked up garbage. He was so focused on cleaning and hopping over obstacles that he didn't notice someone watching him. Izuku had actually noticed the kid as soon as he stopped and began observing him. After clearing a good area, he walked over to get a drink and sit down. The person hadn't left, though, so he turned to them with a smile. You can sit down if you want, I don't bite, I promise. He joked, making the person smile. The two sat in silence until Izuku decided to speak again. My name's Izuku Midoriya. The person stared at him before responding. Shinso Hitoshi. Izuku nodded and stood up almost abruptly. Well, I'm going to do a little more work. You're welcome to join in if you want. He smiled before returning to moving the garbage. He noticed Shinso hadn't moved yet. After another hour, he decided to call it a day and walked back over to Shinso, who still hadn't budged. Well, do you want to go get some lunch? The other seemed surprised that Izuku was even talking to him. I don't have any money. Izuku smiled brighter. That's fine, I'll treat you. The boy followed him, though he seemed a little nervous. Why are you taking a complete stranger to lunch? Shinso asked, avoiding eye contact. Why were you watching a complete stranger? Izuku replied with a smirk, catching Shinso's gaze. But, it was because, Izuku thought for a moment. He noticed that Shinso seemed skinnier than he should be and the subtle marks around his mouth. I don't really know, it seemed fun. Shinso looked confused but shrugged it off. Why did you follow a stranger? Depending on his answer, Izuku was going to offer something. You seemed nice enough. Izuku nodded. If what he suspected was true, he would definitely introduce Shinso to his mom later. Most people wouldn't do that, Shinso said, flinching slightly. But then again, most people don't offer lunch to a complete stranger. Once they reached the downtown area, Izuku watched for Shinso to choose a place. He wasn't surprised when Shinso's eyes settled on a cat cafe for a moment. Let's go there. Izuku suggested, noticing the subtle signs of happiness on Shinso's face. They were mostly silent, but neither seemed to mind it. Curiosity got the better of Izuku. So, what's your quirk? He saw Shinso flinch at the question. The other began to avoid eye contact and shrank a little. I'm quirkless, Izuku added, seeing the surprise on Shinso's face. So whatever your answer is, I'm not going to push you away, but I won't push for an answer either. Shinso seemed to calm down after that but still didn't look up. Brainwashing. Izuku nodded. Is it response-based, or do you have to do it through contact? Can someone break out, or do you have to let them go? Izuku asked, genuinely curious and wanting to show he wasn't afraid to talk to Shinso. It's response-based, and they have to be pushed somehow to be knocked out of it, or feel pain. Izuku nodded and wrote it down on a napkin, knowing he had a good memory and wanted to remember this later. That's really cool. Do you plan on being a hero? Izuku asked, his interest piqued. Yeah, I want to be like Eraserhead. Izuku's eyes lit up with excitement. Really? Me too. He's so cool, and his fighting style is actually hard to follow. Izuku continued to talk about Eraserhead, with Shinso chiming in with his thoughts. After a while of eating and chatting, it was almost time for Izuku to head home. "Hey, do you have a phone?" Izuku asked, pulling his out. Yeah," Shinso replied, handing his phone to Izuku. "Why?" "Well, to exchange numbers, right? I mean, we're friends after all." Izuku explained with a bright smile. "Oh, okay." Shinso shrugged, but Izuku could see the happiness in his eyes. "And call or text if you ever need anything." Shinso nodded. "Seriously, even if it's something you think is silly." Soon, they said goodbye, and Izuku called his mom. "Hi honey. What's up? I met someone today. But something's wrong with his home life. I'm going to see if I can help him, and if I can, is it okay if, of course, honey? I would love to have him over. Don't worry about anything." The next night, Izuku was woken up by his phone ringing loudly. He saw it was Shinso. "Shinso. Everything okay?" he asked, hearing faint crying on the other end. "Shinso, talk to me. What's happening?" He quickly put on his shoes and jacket. I don't know. It's okay, I'm on my way. Can you tell me where you are?" Izuku ran out the door, unsure of where he was going. On XX Street, the light blue house with a white door and a black car in the driveway. Izuku looked for the street and turned down it, feeling uneasy about how Shinso sounded. He picked up the pace until he saw the house. "Shinso, can you get outside? Or near a window?" After some shuffling, a window opened near him. "Okay, I see it. Back up a little, okay." He took a few steps back before sprinting forward, using the house to help him up. He gripped the window edge and pulled himself inside. Once in, he felt someone tackle him in a hug. He looked down and saw Shinso. "I'm sorry it took a while to get here," he said, unclasping the muzzle and setting it down before hugging Shinso again. "Now I need to get you out of here, okay? So grab anything you want." Shinso nodded and grabbed a bag from under his bed. Izuku felt a twinge of sadness that it was only slightly packed. "Okay, now hold on." Izuku picked him up and climbed out the window, landing safely. "You okay?" When Shinso nodded, he set him down. "I'm going to take you to my house. We'll rest, and then in the morning, we'll deal with this, okay?" Shinso nodded, looking a bit sluggish. "Okay, up you go." He then carried Shinso on his back to his house. When Aizawa went out for patrol, he expected the usual muggings and robberies. He didn't expect to see a 14-year-old jump into a window and carry out a younger boy. He trailed them for a moment before deciding to approach. He wasn't expecting the older boy to notice him and turn with a serious glare. "Why are you carrying a kid on your back?" Aizawa asked, activating his quirk. The teen looked shocked. "You're Eraserhead. Answer the question." The teen hesitated, glancing back to check if the younger boy was still asleep. "I met him a few days ago. I told him to call me if anything happened. He called me crying and told me where he was. When I got there, he was wearing a muzzle and looked like he'd been hurt." Aizawa was taken aback. A 14-year-old had just saved a child's life because the boy reached out for help. "Where are you taking him?" Aizawa asked. "My house. I'll treat any wounds, make him food if he's hungry, let him sleep, and then in the morning, I'll go with my mom to get him checked out and talk to the cops about him staying with us permanently." Aizawa was impressed. Most people would have just taken him to the authorities. Aizawa thought for a moment. "Fine, take this." He handed the boy a piece of paper with his number. "Tomorrow, when you go to the doctor's, call me, got it?" The teen looked surprised. "Oh yeah, sure." Aizawa nodded before stepping back, ensuring they made it home safely. When they arrived, the lights were on, and Inko was pacing, looking worried. When Izuku opened the door, she was about to shout but stopped when she saw the sleeping boy on her son's back. Izuku. What happened? She whispered, glancing at the boy. I told him to call me if anything happened. He called me crying, so I rushed over. Is it okay if we come with you to work tomorrow? He should get checked out. Inko nodded. Do you want to wake him up? See if he's hungry. She started walking toward the kitchen. He nodded and gently set the younger boy on the couch before shaking him slightly. Shinso. The boy slowly opened his eyes and blinked a couple of times. Hey, are you hungry? Shinso looked around for a moment before nodding. Okay, I'll get you a sandwich. Any preference? Peanut butter if that's okay. Sure thing. He walked to the kitchen and saw his mom gathering a few supplies to check on Shinso. She walked into the living room, and Shinso panicked for a moment, about to run. It's okay, I'm Izuku's mother and a nurse. Do you have any injuries? The boy seemed to just stare at her. Izuku. Her son walked out with some food and handed it to Shinso. Here, I got it. You can go to bed, Mom. She nodded and went back to her room. Is it okay if I treat your injuries? Why yeah, is she nice? Izuku looked up from examining Shinso's arms. Yep. She tries to help anyone. She's honestly my hero, he joked as he began cleaning any old and new wounds on him. After Shinso ate and was treated, Izuku went to grab a blanket and pillow. He set the pillow down and sat next to Shinso, who had fallen asleep on his shoulder. Izuku smiled and decided not to move him too much, laying down and letting Shinso use him as a pillow. In the morning, the three of them went to the car and drove to the hospital. Okay, Izuku, you and Shinso can head to, she pulled out an empty chart, go to room 15, and I'll be in there with Chio, okay? Izuku nodded and led Shinso into the room where they both sat on the bed. Oh. Eraserhead wanted me to call him. Shinso's eyes widened. You have Eraserhead's number. When did you get that? Shinso asked, looking amazed. The other night, he wanted to make sure you were okay. Shinso looked starstruck as Izuku called the hero. Hello. A tired voice answered the phone. Hi. We met last night, and you told me to call you when we got to the hospital. There was rummaging on the other side of the phone. Okay, I'll be there soon. The man hung up. Izuku looked a little offended at the phone as he walked back over to Shinso. I don't know how to feel about the fact that my favorite hero just hung up on me. It wasn't long before Chio walked into the room and saw the two boys talking. It's good to see you again, dear. Glad you aren't hurt again, she joked. No, Grandma Chio, but this is Shinso. He stepped aside to show the woman Shinso. Nice to meet you, Shinso. My name is Dr. Chio, but Izuku and his mother call me Grandma Chio. She offered a hand that he slowly shook. Now, any injuries I should know about? Shinso looked to Izuku, who smiled. He's malnourished, though it's not extreme, some dehydration, bruising on his right side, a few scars on his chest, but other than that, everything is superficial. Chio nodded. Okay, I'll give you a once-over, then we'll give you an 4 and some food. If needed, I'll use my quirk and fix you right up. Shinso nodded but held on to Izuku's arm throughout the whole thing. Sorry, let me answer this. Izuku picked up his phone. Hello. Deku. Where have you been? I haven't seen you for weeks. Izuku laughed as he heard the other person yell into the phone. Sorry, Kaken. I've been busy, you know that. I'll make sure to stop by later, okay? You can meet me at the gym later and see how well your fighting's gotten, Izuku teased, knowing it would rile up the other. Oh, it's on, Deku. The other hung up as Izuku glared at the phone. Everyone keeps hanging up on me today. This made Shinso laugh and lighten up a little. Oh, you think that's funny? Izuku asked with a smile. Shinso started laughing harder. It wasn't long before his phone went off again. He glared and answered it. Swear to God if you hang up on me, I will. Sorry, I'll make sure not to do it again. Izuku's face heated up. But I'm here with a friend of mine. What room are you in? Right, sorry. I'll be down there in a second. He hung up this time and turned to Shinso. I'll be back in a minute, okay? If you need anything, hit this button, and my mom will come check on you, okay? Shinso nodded as Izuku walked out the door heading to the entrance. When he made it there, he saw Eraserhead with another man talking to his mom. Oh. Sweetie. Just in time. Inko turned and gave her son a hug. I have to go, one of the patients went into shock. We'll be back, okay? Love you. She seemed to run off, shouting orders. Sorry about that. Anyway, we're over here. Izuku began to lead them to the room. I'm Detective Naomasa, by the way. I want to help with Shinso's case. Izuku looked at the man and smiled. That's fantastic. They walked into the room where Shinso was talking to Chiyo. Oh, you're back, Chiyo saw Eraserhead and smiled. And brought a friend, I see. I'll leave you to it, dear. She walked out of the room, leaving the four of them there. Okay, I'm Detective Naomasa. Can you tell me your name, age, and quirk? Shinso grabbed onto Izuku's arm again as he answered. Shinso Hitoshi 12 and brainwashing. Izuku felt Shinso tighten his hold but didn't react. Okay, can you tell me what growing up was like? Izuku put his hand over Shinso's to help him calm down a little. My parents were killed in a villain attack. After that, I was tossed around in foster care because of my quirk, and I was in this home for almost a year. Izuku felt Shinso tighten his hold but kept smiling. They made me wear a muzzle because of my quirk, and if I talked, they'd hit me for it or wouldn't feed me. Shinso stopped talking after that, and it was silent. You know, Shinso, isn't your favorite hero Eraserhead? Izuku asked with a teasing smile. The younger boy immediately blushed and punched him in the shoulder. Shut up, he whispered, though Izuku could see the two adults smiling. What? I didn't say anything wrong, Izuku said, and Shinso punched him again, making Izuku laugh. The hospital visit went smoothly after that, though Izuku did end up having to ask Eraserhead for an autograph for both of them. We got his autograph, Shinso whispered in amazement as Izuku walked them back home. I know, it's pretty cool, Izuku said with the same amazement, though he was a little more focused on not getting lost. Wait, does this mean I live with you now? Shinso asked, a little confused, though Izuku didn't blame him since Inko had already been working on it. Yep. Izuku nudged Shinso in the shoulder, a smile on his face. It also means I get to be your big brother. Shinso blushed slightly at the comment. I've never really had an older brother, he admitted. Izuku's smile widened as he nudged him again. I've never had a younger brother, so we'll learn this together. Once they settled in the kitchen, Izuku began cooking dinner. So Shinso, do you have any idea what you want to do when you're older? He asked, turning slightly to show he was listening. Shinso paused before responding, I want to be a hero, but underground. Izuku smiled encouragingly. Have you done any training yet? Shinso looked a bit stumped. No, I never really got the chance. Izuku turned off the stove and offered, well, how about you join me for my training? I go to the gym almost every day to prepare. Shinso's eyes lit up at the suggestion. Really? Izuku nodded as he handed Shinso their food. Just a warning, it can be a little intense, and there are sometimes other kids there. Another person usually joins me on weekends. Shinso looked thoughtful. Are they nice? Izuku considered for a moment. The kids at the gym are nice, though really loud. The other person, well, he's not mean, just a bit of a brat. But he won't be if it bothers you. Shinso nodded, contemplating the offer. Okay, as long as I can leave if it gets too much. The next day, Izuku got into his exercise clothes and woke Shinso. Hey, do you want to come today? Shinso blinked a few times but nodded. Okay, I have some extra clothes that should fit. Izuku grabbed an extra water bottle and some money for lunch. When Shinso came downstairs, there was a knock at the door. Hi Kaken, you ready too? Izuku called. Yeah, Deku. Who's the guy joining us? Shinso stepped out from behind Izuku and waved slightly. This is Shinso, play nice. Though Izuku sounded playful, he shot Bakugo a look to encourage him to be friendly. Whatever, let's go. Name's Bakugo. As they walked, Izuku felt happy to see the two getting along without much help from him. Upon arriving at the gym, Izuku noticed the others were already there. Midoriya. Good to see you back. And you brought some friends. Haku exclaimed, drawing the group's attention. Bakugo, the group yelled, tackling him to the ground. Get off me. Bakugo protested, but the group just laughed before turning to Shinso. Hi. My name's Kaminari, and this is Shiro, Mina, and Kirishima. Shinso watched them for a moment before introducing himself. Shinso. Soon after, Shinso was drawn into the group as they trained and played together. Izuku smiled as he practiced parkour, dodging Haku, who was playfully chasing him. Are you ready to go, Izuku? Inko asked as he rushed down the stairs. Shinso watched him with a mix of admiration and nervousness. Yep. I have everything. I'll see you later. Bye, Mom. Bye, Toshi, he called before running out the door. Don't forget to walk Hitoshi home. Inko reminded him, causing Shinso to blush and glare. I can walk myself, Mom. Izuku approached the front building, observing everyone walking in with confidence. He felt a bit nervous as he entered and sat down to prepare for the written exam. The questions seemed easy, and he finished halfway through the allotted time, even reviewing his answers before submitting the packet. As everyone gathered in the auditorium, Present Mike began explaining the next part of the exam, and Izuku's nerves returned. They would be fighting robots. He felt overwhelmed, standing at the back of the group. He looks nervous, someone whispered. One less person to beat, another added. Izuku glared at the ground, digging his fingernails into his palms. Go. The command jolted him into action, and he sprinted past everyone into the mock city. Spotting a one-pointer, he slid under it and quickly disabled it. See. That guy's got the idea. There are no countdowns in real life. Go. 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 He felt grateful for the head start, now at least a point ahead of the others. Izuku took down another one-pointer and a three-pointer similarly, noticing that the three-pointer had a screen inside that displayed the locations of other robots. Using that information and a poll he found, he managed to rack up 15 more points before it became harder to find robots that others weren't already targeting. Turning a corner, he saw rubble. About to fall on someone who wasn't paying attention. He rushed forward and tackled the person out of harm's way. Hey! Watch it, the person exclaimed, but Izuku didn't respond as he got back up and continued running. That kid should be thankful he's not dead right now, thanks to that green-haired one, Vlad King remarked. It's true, he's saved a few other students and is accumulating both villain and rescue points, another teacher added. He hasn't used his quirk either, it might be a mental quirk, Nedza noted, pulling up the student's file. Midoriya Izuku, quirkless. This revelation surprised several teachers, but Aizawa recognized the name and face immediately. I remember him, he was the one who brought that abuse case to light a few years ago, Aizawa explained with a hint of pride. You like him, don't you? Yamada teased, earning a glare from Aizawa. No, he just has potential and isn't foolish. Yamada feigned awe, prompting Aizawa to lightly punch him in the stomach. Izuku had just helped another person when he felt a rumble. Looking up, he saw everyone running from a giant robot. Zero-pointer, he thought, racing toward the chaos. Most of the students had already fled, except for one girl who seemed to be struggling. "Hey! Is it just you?" he called out. The girl shook her head, panic evident in her eyes. No. There was another girl in the alley, and he needed to help her. He urged the others to assist her while he took a moment to gather himself. Aizawa watched the scene unfold, frustration evident on his face. Does he have a death wish? He muttered, his eyes glued to the screen. No, there's another girl in that alley. If he doesn't make it, both he and the girl could be in serious trouble, someone explained. Izuku dashed into the alley and found the girl holding her leg in pain. He carefully scooped her up and rushed out just as the building next to them collapsed. He made it back to the front gate just in time. Setting her down gently, he sighed in relief. "Sorry, are you okay?" he asked. She nodded and thanked him just as Recovery Girl arrived to heal them both, tending to Izuku's minor injuries as well. "There you go, sweetie. Can't have your mom worrying now, can we?" Izuku gasped quietly before nodding. "Right, thanks, Grandma Chio." Once everything was settled, he packed his belongings and stepped outside the school when someone grabbed him. "Hey!" he exclaimed as he was slammed against a wall, a familiar face glaring at him. You made me look weak." Izuku was taken aback until he recognized the boy he had saved. "If I didn't push you out of the way then," Izuku started, but the boy interrupted him with a punch to the face. "Shut up. If I don't get into the hero course because of you, you're dead." He slammed Izuku against the wall again before storming off. Slowly, Izuku sank to the ground, feeling the BLD from his nose and lip. He sighed, pulled out his first aid kit, and tended to his injuries. Glancing at his phone, he cursed before packing up and running to Shinso's school. After Shinso was adopted by the Midoriyas, the bullying he faced lessened. Inko didn't tolerate any harm to her children, and when she learned about the bullying, she made sure it stopped. However, the harassment continued outside of school until Izuku started walking Shinso home. Although Shinso could defend himself, they both knew he would be blamed if anything happened. Izuku's tough appearance often deterred others, especially when he showed up with bandages from training. One day, as they walked home, a group of bullies approached them. "Your brother not here to pick you up this time." "Huh, that gives us some free time," one of them taunted, grabbing Shinso by the collar. Just then, Izuku appeared in an unzipped track suit, his face showing signs of recent injuries. "What do you think you're doing?" he demanded, stepping forward with a fierce glare. The boys panicked and fled. Turning to Shinso, he asked, "You okay, Toshi?" "I'm not the one with BLD on my face," Shinso replied, noticing Izuku's injuries. Izuku chuckled, "Yeah, happened during the exam. Nothing too bad, let's go home." As they walked, Shinso studied his brother, knowing he could sense when someone was being bullied. A week passed as Izuku anxiously awaited his acceptance letter into the hero course. His family and friends tried to reassure him. "There's no way you didn't make it, Deku. You did great." Katsuki insisted while training. "You even saved people, right? That has to count for something." "Izuku, Mom would be furious if they didn't let you in," Shinso added. Izuku expressed his worries about being quirkless, but his friends laughed it off, insisting he was anything but useless. Finally, when they returned home, Inko greeted them with tears of joy, holding an envelope. "It's here!" she exclaimed. Izuku grabbed it, his heart racing. "Open it, Izuku," Shinso urged, hanging onto his brother's shoulders. They settled on the couch as Izuku opened the envelope, revealing a small disc. The screen flickered to life, displaying Principal Netsu. "Hello, Midoriya Izuku. I'm here to tell you your score and whether you got in. You did a fantastic job analyzing the area and using it to your advantage, earning 30 villain points. Inko and Shinso cheered. That normally isn't enough for the hero course, but you also earned rescue points. Clips of Izuku saving others played on the screen. You racked up quite a few by helping other students, giving you a total of 90 points. Congratulations, Midoriya. You're in Class 1A of the hero course. The screen turned off as Inko and Shinso tackled Izuku into a hug, celebrating his achievement. I made it. Izuku shouted, excitement bubbling over as he and Shinso made their way to the gym. The Baku squad, along with Kirishima's moms, all jumped up in excitement. Haku cheered as they tackled Izuku into a hug. Told you. Good job. You're manly as hell. Izuku laughed at their enthusiastic support. Okay, kids, get off Midoriya, Sakura said, helping him up. Since you made it, I think you deserve a little surprise. Izuku raised an eyebrow in curiosity. Haku pulled out a box and approached him. Oh no, you guys really didn't have to, he protested, trying to push the box away, but they wouldn't let him. Open it. Open it. The group urged, while Katsuki and Shinso exchanged smirks. Izuku opened the box and slowly revealed its contents. Inside was a black jacket with white sleeves, featuring a neon green eye. On the left side and a neon green bunny face on the back, accented with green around the sleeves. Oh my god, I'm never taking this off. He felt the fabric, noting its similarity to workout gear. We made sure it was breathable so you could wear it while you work out. Mina explained. And look on the inside of the collar. Shiro pointed out excitedly. Izuku checked the inside collar and felt tears welling up. It had the words, Squad Big Brother, embroidered on it. Oh my god, guys. He couldn't help but cry. This means now we're your responsibility. Kaminari exclaimed as the group jumped on him again, enveloping him in a warm hug. It was mine and Ibag's idea, you were getting it either way, Katsuki stated. Izuku smiled, pulling them all into a hug. Let me go. Put me down, Deku. Katsuki and Shinso shouted, trying to escape the group hug. Nope. Izuku was walking with his headphones in and his hair styled up as he made his way to the store. He wore black ripped pants, a white t-shirt, that red sweatshirt, and the jacket his friends had gifted him. Lost in thought, he didn't notice someone grab his arm and slam him against a wall. He hit his head lightly and blinked, recognizing the three boys in front of him. Well, if it isn't Izuku Midoriya. Heard you got into UA, one of them sneered. Izuku glared, having encountered them before, though he never learned their names since they only bullied him. Yeah, the hero course, he replied flatly, bracing himself for a confrontation. You think you're better than us, Midoriya, the leader challenged. I really don't, Izuku replied honestly. You're not, they probably only let you in because they felt bad, the boy taunted, and his friends laughed. Shut up, the leader snapped, his tone darkening. They'll realize soon enough that you aren't worth their time, Orway can show them. He pulled back his arm, ready to strike, but someone intervened. And what do you think you're doing? A man appeared, grabbing the leader's wrist. The three boys looked confused, and Izuku's eyes widened in shock. What's it to you? The leader asked, yanking his arm away. Other than the fact you almost hit the kid. I'm a pro hero, so tell me, the man replied. The two lackeys quickly ran off, leaving the leader, who reluctantly let go of Izuku before following his friends. Thanks, Eraserhead, but I should really, Izuku started, but Eraserhead's glare silenced him. Do they bother you a lot? Izuku was taken aback. No. Not really. Just light teasing normally, he tried to downplay it, but Eraserhead wasn't convinced. You're lying, he said, and Izuku looked down. Whatever, they should leave you alone now. If not, you still have my number. With that, he left, and Izuku felt a mix of confusion and relief. He just appears and then leaves. Izuku exclaimed, feeling more relaxed. Dressed in his uniform, Izuku wandered the halls of UA, feeling a bit lost. Hey! You lost. A blonde upperclassman approached him. Yeah, a little. Do you know where Class 1A is? Izuku asked nervously. Yep. Here, I'll lead you there, the boy replied. They walked in silence for a moment. My name is Mirio Togata, how about you? He asked. Oh. I'm Midoriya Izuku. They stopped in front of a door, from which Izuku could already hear voices. Here we are. Good luck, Midoriya. Mirio waved goodbye as he walked away. Thank you, Togata-senpai. Izuku called after him. Entering the classroom, Izuku felt his nerves spike. A group was sitting on desks, experimenting with their quirks, while another pair was drawing on the walls. He took a seat and pulled out a notebook, jotting down ideas for his weaponry. He envisioned something for technology and hacking, as well as items for close and long-range support. Suddenly, he looked up to see Eraserhead standing in the doorway with his quirk activated, addressing the group causing chaos. You four, go to the principal's office. Izuku was shocked as the students protested, but Eraserhead remained firm. I didn't ask for excuses, leave. The four students glared but complied, leaving the room. Who even are you? One of them shouted as they exited. Eraserhead turned his attention to the remaining students. You three can join them and leave, now. Izuku was astonished, he had never seen so many students expelled at once, especially those with strong quirks. Everyone put these on and meet me outside. Before they even made it outside, 3 more students had been expelled, and Izuku hadn't even seen it happen. When they finally made it outside, only 9 other students remained. Today, we'll be doing an apprehension test. You can use your quirks during the test. Most of the students were quiet, but a few couldn't help but speak up. This'll be easy. Yeah, they'll be lucky to even beat me once. Eraserhead sighed and shot them a glare. You would think you learned by now. You can leave now. Throughout the test, another student was expelled. Izuku felt relieved that he wasn't the last one standing, but the last student left was clearly upset. Soon, they were expelled as well, leaving Izuku and 5 others at the end. Sir, one of the remaining girls asked Eraserhead. Why did you call it an apprehension test instead of a quirk apprehension test? Because one of you doesn't have a quirk. Izuku flinched, but the others didn't notice. He could hear them murmuring about how dangerous it was for someone without a quirk. Stop, Eraserhead commanded, silencing them. If you think it's too dangerous for a quirkless person to do this, or if you have issues with someone being quirkless, raise your hand. Izuku was the only one who didn't raise his hand. Great, you all can leave too then. UA doesn't allow quirk discrimination. Ignoring the glares aimed at him as the students departed, Izuku turned to Eraserhead. You really shouldn't have done that. They're all talented and strong. You shouldn't let some quirkless kid. Eraserhead interrupted him, placing a hand on his shoulder. Midoriya, you're not just some quirkless kid. You have potential, unlike them, and you're willing to give people a second chance no matter what. You let me choose who really deserves one. Izuku nodded. Good. Now go home, or I'll expel you too. Izuku walked out of UA that day feeling shocked. He had expected the day to be chaotic, but not like this. When he picked up Shinso from school, the younger boy immediately noticed his unusual demeanor. Okay, what happened? You look like you just got expelled. You didn't, did you? Izuku snapped out of his thoughts and laughed lightly. No, the exact opposite actually, everyone in my class was expelled, except me. Shinso stared at him in disbelief. What? Exactly. And my teacher was Eraserhead. He expelled everyone except me. They walked in silence for a moment until Shinso spoke again. So, did he adopt you or something? Hitoshi. The next day, as Izuku walked to class, he spotted Mirio and two other students. Hey! Midoriya. You're still here. Izuku smiled and waved before approaching them. Heh, yeah, I'm glad I'm still here too. It was nice running into you. After exchanging pleasantries, Izuku entered the classroom, where Aizawa was already settled in his sleeping bag. Good, you're here early. Makes my life easier, Aizawa said, stepping out of the sleeping bag and gesturing for Izuku to stand by him. We need to figure out your hero costume and support items. Izuku nodded. I saw you writing in a notebook labeled Hero Gear. Mind showing me? Feeling a bit shy, Izuku pulled out the notebook from his bag and handed it to Aizawa. The teacher examined it for a moment before writing some words on the board. Okay, you'll need to explain to me why you'll need these things. The board displayed long-range item, close-range item, grappling item, and computer. Well, for the computer, it would be something that goes on my arm like a small screen so I could write information down and hack into things. I learned how to hack when I was younger and have gotten a lot better at it. That could be helpful with security cameras and systems. For the long-range item, it would help me fight someone who attacks from a distance. Instead of trying to get close, I could weaken them from afar first. The short-range item would be similar since I can fight hand-to-hand. It would help if they had a weapon that I couldn't block, and for a grappling item, it would assist me in climbing, traveling, and pulling people closer to attack them. Aizawa listened, slightly surprised by Izuku's detailed explanation. Good. Do you have any ideas for the items? Izuku rubbed the back of his neck. For the short range, I could use a knife or eskrima sticks since they could block and deal damage. If I used the eskrima sticks, I could add an electrical charge so that if I hit someone with them while charged, it could knock them out. Aizawa nodded. The eskrima sticks sound like a better idea since you seem to have more ideas with them. What about the long-range item? Izuku hesitated. Well, what about a gun? Aizawa raised an eyebrow. Not with actual bullets. Unless they're needed, but more like RBB bullets and beanbag shots. They are less lethal and still do damage. It would be a lot safer too, Aizawa cut him off. Good, you at least have done research on them. I'll talk to Snipe and have him teach you all the safety rules and anything else you'll need. Izuku let out a breath of relief. Now, what about the grappling item? Izuku blushed slightly. When I came up with that, I was watching a video of you fighting, and I thought it was really cool how you used your capture weapon. So I thought something similar would work. Not the same thing, of course, since that would be copying you. But maybe something that goes on my arms that I could have under my sleeves. That way it's a hidden weapon and people don't expect it. Aizawa nodded in agreement. Okay, we'll have to work on your movements and see how well it'll work with certain styles and how you'll use it, Izuku said with a smile. You seem to know a lot about building support items. Go to Power Loader and work with him on making your costume. Izuku nodded and headed to the support room. Upon arriving, Izuku knocked on the door before entering. How can I help you? Power Loader asked as Izuku walked in. Aizawa-sensei sent me here to work with you on my costume and support items, Izuku explained. Power Loader paused, surprised. Oh, you weren't expelled. Do you have ideas for what you want? Izuku, slightly confused, waved it off and showed him his notebook with added information. With this, it would be a good idea to use a curved piece of glass or strong plastic since it would be harder to break if someone tried to attack that arm, Power Loader suggested, nodding. You seem to know your way around support items, he noted. Izuku blushed and rubbed the back of his neck. Yeah, it's a hobby I picked up. I love building and taking apart stuff. Power Loader smiled. Great. Let's get to work on everything then. Snipe, Aizawa called, turning to the gun hero. I need you to teach my student how to use a gun. The teacher's lounge fell silent. You still have a student. You're giving them a gun? Snipe asked, activating his quirk. Yes and yes. Now will you teach him? Aizawa asked through gritted teeth. Of course, Aizawa. Would it be better to do it after school or during? Aizawa thought for a moment, unsure of Izuku's schedule. I'll have to ask him and get back to you later. He left the teacher's lounge and headed to the support room, where he heard Izuku talking excitedly. If we make it a small bracelet and lace the capture weapon around it, it would be able to shoot out like a grappling hook. And we could hi, Aizawa-sensei. Izuku greeted, stepping away from the blueprints. Good to see you take this seriously. Snipe wants to know if it would be better to teach you gun training during school or after. Izuku thought for a second. Probably during, unless I can leave to pick my brother up and bring him back. Wait, no, I still have to train at the dojo, and they would probably be upset if I didn't show up. Yeah, during would be better. He nodded and left to inform Snipe. Izuku was going on his daily run before school, knowing he would do more exercising later. Once he finished, he would walk Shinso and Katsuki to school, then run home to grab his stuff and change before heading to UA. He felt lucky that he didn't live far from the school. While running back home after dropping off Shinso and Katsuki, he accidentally bumped into someone, distracted by his music. Oh no. I'm so sorry. Are you okay? He asked, helping the man up. I'm fine, problem child. Izuku quickly recognized Aizawa, accompanied by Present Mike and Midnight. Oh no. Sorry, Aizawa-sensei, I wasn't watching where I was going. Aizawa rolled his eyes as he stood up. I said it's fine. He noticed Izuku was dressed for running. Shouldn't you be? Dressed for school. Oh. I always run in the mornings. I just dropped off Toshi and Kaken at school, so I was heading back to grab my stuff before running to school and changing. Izuku explained with a smile. Aizawa raised an eyebrow but sighed. Just don't be late. Izuku smiled and waved before continuing his run. God, you're such a dad, Midnight teased once Izuku was out of earshot. No, I'm not. Show. You just parented him. And I can guarantee that when he comes to class, you're going to give him water to keep him hydrated. Present Mike declared. Aizawa remained silent. Oh my God, he was. Midnight laughed. When Izuku walked into his class, a bottle of water was thrown at him, which he caught. Thank you, he said, and Aizawa nodded. You'll be working with Power Loader more today to finish everything you need. Izuku nodded, putting his bag down and taking off his blazer. I also want to see your analysis, so hand me any notebooks you have. Izuku was a little shocked, he didn't think his analysis was significant. Are you sure? Aizawa shot him a glare, prompting him to hand over 2 notebooks, one labeled Heroes, and the other Villains. Good. Now go to the support department. When lunch hits, get food and come back here so we can do actual classes. Izuku nodded, grabbing another notebook before heading out. Aizawa read through the 2 notebooks as he walked to the teacher's lounge. During break, the other teachers entered to find Aizawa sitting at his desk, looking shocked. Shouldn't you be with your kid? Midnight joked again. Shut up and look at this, he said, handing her the hero notebook open to her page. He's analyzed all of us, figured out most of our weaknesses and how to counter them. Wow, he even figured out yours. Midnight gasped, flipping through the pages. Aizawa continued looking through the villain notebook, noting even more strategies for taking down opponents and the best team-ups against them. His analysis on villains is even better. With the heroes, he looks for things in their style to fix or learn. With the villains, he sees how to take them down and what heroes would be best to fight them. Hey, Aizawa-sensei. Lunch Rush told me to bring you food too since he knows you haven't eaten. You need to eat. Why is everyone staring at me? Izuku asked as he closed the door with his foot, arms full of food. Kid, why didn't you show me this sooner? Aizawa asked, waving one of the notebooks, slightly blushing. I know they aren't that good, it's more of just a hobby really. He set the plates down on Aizawa's desk as he explained. Just a hobby. Midoriya, you figured out how to take down a villain that many heroes haven't caught yet. Izuku quirked an eyebrow as he focused on the page in front of him. Oh, Phantom. He's easy. His quirk lets him phase through things, but if you look at the videos, it depends on the density of the material. You could set a trap with a higher density, and when he phases through, have someone inside take him down. If he somehow escapes, just have the area surrounded. He explained with a shrug, not thinking it was that significant. Problem child, Izuku jumped slightly. I'm going to show you a video, and I want you to analyze both parties, then tell me what you can figure out, got it? Izuku nodded nervously. Aizawa opened his computer, typed a few things, then turned it to press play on the video. As it started, the teachers heard him mumble while covering his mouth slightly. The video was brief, only about 30 seconds long. Tell me what you saw. The one in all black is about 5 feet 7 inches and likely weighs around 160 pounds, male. Their quirk seems to let them break their bones and use them as weapons, which is why their knife looked oddly shaped and had some remnants on it. However, wherever they create a new weapon is useless for about 20 seconds until the bone grows back. The person in blue and gold is about the same height and weighs around 180 pounds, female. Their quirk allows them to control small metals, molding them into different objects, but the larger the object, the more fragile it is and easy to break. They seem to struggle to focus while molding the weapon, but it only takes a few seconds to create it. He spoke quickly, but Aizawa understood him. Good, and you're right. Tomorrow, bring in any other notebooks you have. I'm going to teach you coding. Now go eat lunch and head to your other classes. Izuku nodded and smiled before grabbing his food and walking out the door. God, you're such a dad. You're so proud of him. Midnight teased. Aizawa pushed her playfully before sitting down to eat the food Izuku had brought him. After school, Izuku said goodbye to Aizawa before heading to the bathroom to change back into his street clothes. He put on some music as he walked the streets, knowing he had a few more minutes until he needed to pick up Shinso and the others from school. As he walked past an alley, something caught his attention. He paused his music and looked down the alley, making sure not to reveal himself. Oh really, what's someone with a weak quirk like yours gonna do? He looked closer and realized it was Kirishima being cornered. What do you think you're doing? Izuku asked, stepping out with his arms crossed. The group jumped and Kirishima looked happy but confused to see Izuku there. Oh, you're Shinso's older brother, right? We were just talking with our friend Senpai, one of the guys stuttered. Izuku raised an eyebrow but kept his focus on the group while talking to Kirishima. Right, Kirishima, are you friends with these guys? Kirishima shook his head, and the group shot him a glare. That's what I thought. So what are you doing? None of them answered. He uncrossed his arms and took a few steps forward, making them all jump and run past him. He didn't lighten his glare until they were gone. You okay? They didn't hurt you, right? Izuku asked Kirishima, who looked amazed. I'm fine. That was so cool. You just glared, and they ran away. Izuku blushed and rubbed the back of his neck. Yeah, before I met you guys, they always tried to start fights with Toshi, so I would walk up covered in bandages and a glare. According to Toshi and Kaken, I have a reputation, he joked as they walked out of the alley. Kiri. Why'd you run off? Mina yelled while tackling the other boy, with Siro and Kaminari not far behind. He just laughed but didn't answer the question as Katsuki and Shinso approached them. You guys ready to go? Izuku was writing in one of his notebooks about a new hero that had shown up. It was getting late, and he knew he needed to sleep, but he couldn't shake the feeling that he wasn't doing enough. He was training enough with school and the gym, and he was smart, but something felt off. Then he realized the problem: he didn't have a job. He didn't need one since his mom made enough money to keep them comfortable, but it felt like he wasn't pulling his weight. Closing the notebook, he turned to his computer and typed in, "places hiring." He needed something with a flexible schedule that would allow him to work even though he was 16, and something simple so he wouldn't overwork himself. That's when he founded a small cafe looking for someone who didn't mind working late and doing some heavy lifting. He wrote down the number and decided to ask his mom about it in the morning. The next morning, Izuku was nervous. He had done his research on the cafe, and it seemed like a good place to work. He would be the only other worker there since it was just the owner who needed help with heavy lifting, baking, and customers. He walked downstairs where Inko was watching TV since she had the weekend off. "Morning, Mom." He called as he entered the room. She turned and smiled at him. "Morning, sweetheart," she said, studying him for a moment. "Okay, what is it?" she asked with a teasing smirk. He jumped slightly and blushed. What? You always get this look on your face when you want to ask or do something." He blushed more and looked down, rubbing the back of his neck before finally looking up. "I want to get a job." She looked shocked. "I know I don't need one. You make good money, and we live comfortably, and I know my schedule is usually busy, but I really want one because it feels like I'm actually helping in some way." Or Kinko cut him off by placing her hands on his shoulders. "Izuku, honey, it's okay to want to get a job, but you know it'll be difficult with school, right?" He smiled and nodded. "I know. That's why I did a little research last night. I found this place that needs an extra hand, and it works around my schedule." She smiled and nodded her head. "Okay, honey, as long as you're sure, you can head out there later, but please get some more sleep, okay? I can tell you're still tired." He laughed a little before hugging his mom and going back upstairs. When he woke up, he immediately got dressed in a white shirt, black jeans, and his jacket before calling the cafe. "Hello, this is Mayumi, owner of Sunflower Cafe. How can I help you?" A woman spoke over the phone in a cheerful voice. "Hi. I was calling because I saw your ad for another worker, and I was wondering if I could come in and apply." There was a squeal for a second. "Of course. Just tell me your name and come on in." "Right. My name's Midoriya Izuku. I'll be in soon." He hung up after a quick goodbye, grabbed his phone and house keys, left a quick note, and headed to the cafe. He arrived quickly and walked in, taking in the calm and homey atmosphere. Instead of normal seating, there were booths, lounge chairs, and 2 window sills with padding to sit on. Fairy lights hung from the ceiling alongside a few lamps and bookshelves. The front counter had a small window displaying baked goods, all with a soft theme, while the other side had free space with a few chairs. A woman with straight black hair and dark skin stood gracefully behind the counter with a wide smile. "Hello. How can I help you?" she asked politely as he approached the counter. "Hi. I'm Midoriya Izuku. I'm here about the job." She brightened at that and quickly walked around the counter. "Thank you so much for calling. Shall we get started with the interview? Thank you for letting me come." "And of course." The two sat down at one of the booths, and Mayumi turned to him. "Okay. First, your name, age, school, and quirk." She pulled out a notepad. "Right. My name's Midoriya Izuku, I'm 16, I go to UA, and I'm quirkless." He answered the last part a little nervously. "Really? What course are you in at UA?" she asked, her eyes wide with wonder. He was shocked for a moment before answering. "Oh. I'm in Class 1A of the Hero course." She nodded and wrote it down. "Okay, now why do you want this job?" He thought for a moment about how to word it. "Well, my mom works as a nurse at the hospital and is busy a lot. I have school, I train at a gym, and I have my little brother to look after, but I felt like I wasn't doing enough to help, so I looked for a job that would work with what I can do and around my schedule. I found this place, and it seemed like a good fit. He explained with a bright smile. You're honest, I like that. You also have a very happy and welcoming face, which is great for business. And you wouldn't mind working late hours. I usually only stay open till about midnight since some underground heroes come by every now and again. Nope. I usually have issues sleeping anyway and don't get to bed until around 1 a.m., so this would give me something to do. She smiled and wrote down more. Okay, and one last question, do you have any skills? Izuku had to think about what counted as a skill. Well, I know how to cook, bake, mix drinks, like smoothies, not alcohol, I'm pretty good at fighting, gymnastics, parkour. I know how to operate firearms, I can analyze things, I can create support items, hack stuff. Oh. I know sign language too. Mayumi stared at him for a moment. So you could essentially be a bodyguard, but you want to work at a cafe. He blushed a little but nodded. Well, okay then, when do you want to start? Shinso woke up a little confused. First, he noticed that Izuku wasn't there, then he saw the note on the table. He read it over a few times and was still puzzled. Why was Izuku getting a job? He didn't have much time to think about it, though, as the front door opened, revealing the boy in question. Toshi. You're awake. Izuku greeted, kicking his shoes off. Why are you getting a job? Shinso asked, holding the note up. Oh. Well, I kind of felt like I wasn't helping enough. Shinso raised an eyebrow. That's not something you answer with another question. Izuku laughed a little awkwardly. You know, you and Aizawa-sensei sound really similar, Shinso said, blushing and glaring. Booty just felt I could help more, so I decided to get a job, and they hired me. I start tomorrow, actually. Shinso continued to glare at his brother, but he seemed more exhausted than anything. Whatever, just don't overdo it. Izuku laughed and dragged his brother into a hug. Ah. You care. Hey. Let me go. Adding the cafe to Izuku's schedule was a lot easier than he expected. He would go to school, pick the others up, train at the gym for an hour, head to the cafe, finish there, do a few exercises, and then go home. He hadn't worked any late shifts, which he was silently glad for. Although it did make him a little more worn out, he also slept better thanks to it. Sure, it wasn't the best sleep schedule, but it was better than nothing. Izuku was at the gym working on a punching bag when his phone started ringing. Hey. Your phone's ringing. Kirishima called from the bench. Izuku turned. Who is it? It says Mayumi. Izuku held up his hand as Kirishima threw it to him. He caught it and quickly answered. Is everything okay? There were a few noises before she spoke. Sort of. There's a family emergency, and I was wondering if you could come in early and work the night shift. I know it's a lot to ask, Izuku cut her off. It's no problem. When do you need me in? Can you be here in 10? Izuku looked at the time. Yep. I'll change really quickly and take over. I hope everything goes okay. Thanks, Midoriya. You're a lifesaver. They both said goodbye before Izuku quickly grabbed his stuff. I gotta go, guys. I'll see you all later. He left quickly, confusing the group, though Shinso could guess what happened already. DMN, where's Deku going in such a rush? Bakugo asked, looking at the door. His boss called him into work, Shinso explained while lying on the floor. He has a job. Izuku walked into the cafe and immediately went to the back to change into his uniform. The place didn't actually have a uniform, but the general attire was business casual, so Izuku wore a black button-up and blue jeans with his hair tied up. Thank you for coming in so suddenly, Midoriya. I owe you. Mayumi greeted him with a hug. He hugged her back before separating. Don't worry about it. Now you go and deal with your emergency. He playfully nudged her before grabbing a waste apron and a notepad with a pen. Luckily, the cafe wasn't busy, there was only a businessman working on his computer. Izuku took the opportunity to wipe down the tables, organize the silverware, make a few extra sweets, and do some of his schoolwork at the counter. A few customers came in throughout the day, but nothing significant happened until later that night. He called his mom and Shinso to let them know he would be home later than usual since Mayumi needed him there. His mom told him to make it home safe, while Shinso said he would wait for him in the living room. As midnight approached, Izuku wiped down a few more tables and took care of the trash and dishes when the bell on the door rang. Just a moment, he called from the kitchen, putting down everything to wash his hands before walking to the front. Hi. How can I? He stopped mid-sentence when he saw Aizawa, who looked just as surprised. Midoriya, what are you doing here? Aizawa asked with a sigh. Izuku chuckled and rubbed the back of his neck. Well, I work here actually, he replied, noticing the teacher's surprise. But what can I get you? He glossed over the fact that he was 16 and had a job, even though he didn't actually need one. Right, I'll take a black coffee. Izuku nodded and began making it. The silence felt slightly awkward until Izuku decided to break it. So did you already eat dinner? The teacher raised an eyebrow. Well. It's just that Mike-sensei told me you've been eating more at school since I brought you lunch, and I wanted to know if you had eaten. Since you work as a pro, you need to have a healthy eating schedule. And you're also my teacher, and I'm gonna stop talking now. He blushed as he looked down at the cup before handing it to Aizawa. No, I haven't, Aizawa replied, and Izuku looked up in surprise, then narrowed his eyes slightly at the teacher. Fine, I'll take a muffin. Izuku smiled and got one for his teacher, handing it to him. Aizawa was about to pull out his wallet when Izuku stopped him. Nope. I'll cover it. Izuku said, pulling out his own money and putting it in the cash register. Aizawa glared at him. You're such a problem child, he sighed before leaving. Izuku smiled as he began to close up the shop. Since Izuku was the only student in his class, it made things a little easier but also complicated, especially for group activities. Get suited up and head outside, Aizawa commanded as soon as Izuku walked in, tossing him a suitcase before walking out. Izuku looked at it curiously before realizing it must have been his hero costume. He walked to the changing rooms and opened the case. Inside was a tight black athletic tank top, a black leather jacket with a white hood, fingerless white gloves, a white metal mask, black cargo pants, white combat boots with black metal soles, a black belt with white pockets, 2 guns, white thigh holsters, his eskrima rods, and a pile of cloth. He picked it up and examined it, realizing it was 2 of Aizawa's capture weapons. He geeked out for a moment before trying to figure out where they were supposed to go. He noticed a note in the case and read it. Dear Midoriya, the capture weapons are meant to be wrapped around your arms. Good luck. Nedzu and Power Loader. He was surprised to see Nedzu's name but chose to ignore it. After getting dressed, he looked in the side mirror and smiled, noting that the computer on his arm was well hidden, and the screen was only visible if someone was looking directly at it. He thought he might have to add more stuff later. He walked to the front and saw 13, Aizawa, and Midnight standing by the bus. All 3 looked at him as he ran up to them. Not bad, kid. Izuku smiled, though it was hard to tell since he wore the mask. 13 and Aizawa got on the bus, with Izuku and Midnight following. So, Midoriya, are you excited? Midnight asked, as there wasn't really anyone else for Izuku to talk to. Yeah. I'm not really sure what we're doing, but it probably has something to do with rescue since 13 is here and we're driving somewhere. Plus, I haven't used or even seen my hero costume until now. Then again, it wouldn't explain why you are here. You're not a rescue hero, not that I don't think you're an amazing hero. You really are. But you tend to deal with more strict situations because of your quirk. But you could be used as a villain maybe. It would be. He slowly got quieter as he began to mumble, which surprised Midnight a little. He's fine, he just does that sometimes, Aizawa reassured, making her laugh a little. I don't think I've ever seen him talk this much, he's usually pretty quiet in my class. Izuku seemed to snap out of it and covered his mouth with his hand. Sorry. Didn't mean to start doing that. He blushed lightly, feeling nervous. The last time he had mumbled in school, it hadn't gone well. No worries, problem child, Aizawa said. Did you do the homework I assigned you? Izuku moved his hand and nodded. You wanted me to analyze that wind hero, right? Izuku asked, trying to remember everything he wrote down while Aizawa nodded. I'll have to catalog all my analysis into the computer so I can have it on hand if I need it, he mumbled absent-mindedly, touching where the computer was. It wasn't long before they arrived at a large dome building. Getting off the bus, 13 began to explain everything to Izuku. This is the unexpected simulation joint, they announced as they all walked in. Izuku was practically bouncing on his feet in excitement. Here, you'll be tested and work on your rescuing as a hero. Now he was really bouncing. A few ground rules first. While we're doing this, don't be afraid to ask for help if you're lost or in danger, Izuku nodded along. Be careful and think of yourself first, and finally. Have fun and learn. Izuku clapped at the end while 13 bowed. 13-sensei. Izuku asked, can I ask you more about your quirk? Of course. What do you want to know? 13 replied. Meanwhile, Aizawa and Midnight walked around the area. How well do you think your kid's gonna do? Midnight inquired, glancing around. He'll do fine, he knows what to do and what not to, Aizawa stated simply, though Midnight smirked. You admit he's your kid then? Aizawa glared at her, which made her laugh even more. It was finally time for their exercises to start, and Izuku was bouncing with excitement. For the first one, we'll do a few simple things, like first aid. We'll teach you signs for certain things and go from there. 13 explained. Izuku nodded, feeling confident since he had done a lot of research on injuries and how to treat them. Okay, Aizawa on the ground, 13 commanded. Aizawa groaned as he laid down. Now be in pain. Aizawa rolled his eyes. Ow, it hurts. Ouch. Izuku tried not to laugh, as Aizawa wasn't very convincing, but 13 went along with it. Okay, now do what you think is right, and we'll help you along the way. Izuku nodded and crouched down beside Aizawa. Hi, can you tell me what happened? Izuku asked, pulling down his mask, recalling that it could help calm people in an accident. I was told to lay on the ground, Izuku almost burst out laughing at that, but Aizawa quickly added, I was in a car crash. Izuku collected himself and became serious again. Okay, can you tell me where you feel the most pain? Aizawa thought for a moment. My chest, leg, and head. Izuku reached into one of his pockets and pulled out a small flashlight, waving it in Aizawa's eyes. He paused before turning to 13 and Midnight. For the head injury, Aizawa-sensei's pupils and everything will react normally, but I don't know if he actually has something wrong since nothing seems out of the norm. This surprised all three teachers. And how do you know that? 13 asked, intrigued. Oh, well, I have a lot of free time, so I tend to do a lot of research on things that can help me be a hero. Plus, my mom's a nurse. The teachers were a bit shocked, as most kids used their free time to hang out with friends. Okay, well, if everything is reacting normally, then what do you think the pain would be? Izuku pondered. Possibly a small concussion or headache, though I would still prefer to get the person to a hospital as soon as possible just in case. 13 nodded, and Izuku continued checking Aizawa for other injuries. You said your chest, right? Is it hard to breathe? Izuku asked, placing a hand on Aizawa's chest to measure his breathing, which seemed a bit labored. Yes, there's pressure on my lungs. Izuku frowned and leaned down to listen to Aizawa's breathing. He leaned back up and looked at his teacher. Aizawa-sensei, are you actually injured? Because your breathing is a little slow and rough sounding, and you flinch a bit when breathing. Aizawa seemed surprised that he had noticed. I may have been kicked in the chest and sent into a wall. All three glared at Aizawa, though Midnight looked close to laughing. Sensei. You can't do that. Izuku checked Aizawa's breathing again and applied a little pressure in places, seeing Aizawa wince a couple of times. You have a few bruised ribs, but nothing's broken. You need to take care of yourself more. Izuku scolded, now suspecting Aizawa might have a small concussion. I'm a pro, I can't. Izuku cut him off. Nope. No excuses, you might have a concussion too. Izuku checked Aizawa's eyes again and it did seem like it. He glared at his teacher. You do. Did you get hurt anywhere else? Normally, 13 and Midnight would be helping, but Midnight was having too much fun recording, and 13 was watching. My shoulder and left leg. Izuku nodded, checking those areas. Okay, looks like you have a few pulled and strained muscles but nothing too serious, Aizawa nodded. But why didn't you go see Recovery Girl? You could be seriously hurt. I'm an amateur, you know. Aizawa was about to speak before Izuku stopped him. You know you aren't a very good role model. What would you do if I got badly hurt but didn't go see Recovery Girl? Izuku put his hands on his hips. I would scold you. Exactly. The USJ trip had been cut short since it turned into Izuku lecturing Aizawa about health and safety, though he did learn a little more about first aid. He was at the cafe again since he had a break from the gym. Mayumi was out getting more items they needed, but the place wasn't busy, with a few people scattered around on their phones or working on schoolwork. He was giving people refills when one of the students there stopped him. Sorry if this is a little strange, but we were wondering if you knew how to do this, a girl with a black ponytail asked. She was sitting at a table with a girl who had short purple hair and earphone jacks hanging from her ears. Izuku looked down at what they were doing. Oh. It's okay. He examined the girl's work first. Okay, you just messed up a little. Here, you need to make that a plus and swch those numbers is all. Both girls looked and realized their mistake. Oh no. I have to go back and redo my work, the girl with purple hair groaned, and Izuku felt a little bad. Well, if you want, you can come sit at the counter. I can try and help more. Both girls seemed shocked but excited. Are you sure? We don't want to bother you while you're working, the girl with the ponytail asked. Don't worry. This place doesn't get that busy, plus Mayumi should be back soon. The girls nodded and moved their stuff to the counter while Izuku cleaned a few tables. When he returned to the counter, they introduced themselves. I'm Yaoyorozu Momo, by the way. Jiro Kyoka. Izuku smiled and shook Momo's hand, who offered it. Midoriya Izuku at your service. Izuku was more than happy to help the two girls with their work. He told them to come again if they ever needed help with anything since he didn't mind the extra company. After another late shift that night, he saw his teacher once more. Aizawa-sensei, you should really take a break so your injuries can heal properly if you aren't going to see Recovery Girl, Izuku advised, handing the man a coffee and muffin. I already saw Recovery Girl to heal. I'll try to be more careful, Aizawa replied. Izuku smiled and nodded. Good. Once the teacher left, Izuku began closing up. Not much was left to clean since he often tidied up when it wasn't busy. After finishing, he closed up and started the walk back to his house. However, he paused at an alley when he noticed something. There was a crash, and an animal darted out, making him jump slightly, but he sensed something else was still there. He walked cautiously down the alley, hands clenched in case he needed to defend himself. Near the end, he heard a groan and turned quickly to see someone slumped against the wall. Oh my god! Izuku rushed over and crouched in front of the person, shouldering his bag off. He examined them closely, gently moving their head to check for a pulse. It was there, steady, but their breathing seemed labored. He noticed a few scratches and bruises, along with a large cut near their hairline. A bad shoulder injury caught his eye as well. CRP, they need the hospital. He moved his hand away from their face, but a hand grabbed his arm, stopping him. No hospital. Izuku furrowed his brows and crouched down. You're injured, you need help. The grip on his wrist tightened. The person's eyes opened wider. No. Hospital. Izuku sighed, realizing it wasn't life-threatening. Fine, he relented. They let go of him, but it was clear they wouldn't be able to walk. I'm going to regret this. He grabbed their arm and pulled them onto his back. They were a bit heavy, but manageable. What are you doing? They asked, words slurred. Izuku rolled his eyes, noting their stubbornness. I'm taking you to my place so you can get help, he replied. He felt the other start to shift. Or I can leave you here, he added, and the shifting stopped. Okay, wanna tell me your name? Dabi. Izuku recognized it as a fake name, indicating the guy didn't trust him. Midoriya Izuku at your service, and we're here. He opened the door and carefully lowered Dabi onto the couch, ensuring not to aggravate any wounds. Izuku glanced around the house for a moment. Okay, my mom and brother are asleep right now, but mom should be getting up in a couple of hours, he said. Dabi started to get up but grunted in pain. Oh no you don't. Where do you think you're going? Izuku asked, glaring as he made Dabi sit back down. Said your mom might be getting up soon. Izuku glared again. So. You're injured. Besides, she's a nurse, she probably won't notice. Just then, Shinso walked out of the hall. Izuku, what are you? He paused, noticing Dabi, who looked ready to bolt. I'll get the medical supplies. Thanks, Toshi. Izuku called back as Shinso disappeared down the hall. Dabi looked between the hallway and Izuku. He seems pretty relaxed for having a stranger here, Dabi remarked. Izuku chuckled while sitting down. It's kinda how he got here. He didn't elaborate as Shinso returned with the supplies. He sat next to Dabi, scrolling on his phone while Izuku wrapped and treated the wounds until he reached the shoulder. This is gonna hurt, Izuku warned, placing one hand against the shoulder near the wound and using the other to grab disinfectant. He put a cloth between his teeth. Sorry, he whispered before pouring it on Dabi's shoulder. Dabi gritted his teeth and grabbed Izuku's wrist. Sorry, Izuku muttered, stopping to let Dabi take the cloth and apply pressure to the wound. He quickly stitched it up, though it was a bit messy, it was the best he could do. Okay, should be good now. Dabi finally released Izuku's wrist. He knew it would bruise and recognized the injuries as first to second degree burns. He wrapped the injury just in case before looking at his own. I'll be right back. Toshi, make sure he doesn't move, Izuku instructed as he walked away. So what's your deal? Shinso asked, looking at Dabi. Dabi raised an eyebrow. The hell do you mean? What's your deal? Shinso smirked. Well, Izuku has a tendency to pick up strays, but none this messed up. Dabi rolled his eyes. Oh yeah. What about you then? Shinso shrugged. Abusive foster homes, he found me one night and now I live with him. Dabi was taken aback by the answer, leaning back with a sigh. Found me bleeding out in an alley after a fight. Shinso nodded. Sounds fun. Izuku returned with gauze wrapped around his wrist. Anyone hungry or thirsty? He asked while walking into the kitchen. I'll take a water and a sandwich, Shinso replied, looking at Dabi for an answer. Same thing. Dabi said. Izuku stared at him for a moment. Okay. Soon, it was almost 4 in the morning, and the three of them were eating and drinking. Dabi was shocked and confused at how relaxed they seemed around him, even though they didn't know who he was. So do you just kidnap people for fun? Izuku and Shinso nearly spat out their food, Izuku in shock and Shinso trying not to laugh. What? Izuku asked. He said you kidnapped him, and you kidnapped me, Dabi pointed out. Izuku turned to Shinso, still trying to suppress laughter. You told him that I kidnapped you? Shinso asked, and Dabi nodded. First of all, I didn't, you called me. Second of all, you can leave, he added, and Dabi almost stood up. As soon as you're healed up. I could be a criminal, you know. Some villain with a body count, Dabi said. Are you? Izuku asked, raising an eyebrow. Dabi shook his head. Then I don't need to worry, Izuku replied, and Dabi couldn't understand why this guy was so trusting, which was starting to worry him. Shinso sat up and turned on the TV, settling on a documentary channel. He sighed, feeling the weight of his scars. But I'm just a guy covered in scars, sitting here, he groaned, rolling his head back. How long are you going to ask the same question? Dabi shrugged, unsure of what to say. Are you dangerous? Izuku asked, curiosity in his eyes. I could hurt you, Shinso replied, a smirk playing on his lips. So could a hero, or even a determined goose. You're not special, Shinso joked, eliciting a small laugh from Izuku. Fine, I'll be quiet. Just then, an alarm went off, and footsteps could be heard upstairs. Mom's awake, Shinso pointed out. What time is it? Izuku stood up, glancing at the clock. I need to get ready. You too, Toshi, and make sure to take a nap after school. Dabi watched as they prepared to leave. And what about you, Mr. Busy Schedule? Izuku playfully nudged him. I don't have work today, so I'll be at the gym. Dabi felt uncertain, he didn't want to leave the house, fearing Izuku might follow him. Footsteps approached, and Inko appeared, stopping to stare at Dabi. Well, hello. Izuku and Hitoshi didn't mention we had a guest, she said, unsure how to react. I'm Inko, their mother. Nice to meet you. Dabi, he replied. Nice to meet you, Dabi. I have to run, but have a great day, boys. She grabbed her keys and jacket. Bye, Mom. Izuku and Shinso called back as they headed upstairs. A few moments later, they returned, ready for the day. Izuku wore jeans and a sports jacket, while Shinso was in his uniform. So, Dabi, I usually walk Toshi and the others to school before coming back here. Want to join us? Dabi hesitated, feeling out of place. I guess I'll come. Who are the others? Before Izuku could answer, there was a loud knock at the door. Oi. Deku. Eye bags. Let's go. Dabi stared at the door, unsure of what to expect. That's Kaken, or Bakugu. Don't worry, he's nice. The three of them stood up, though Dabi moved a bit slower due to lingering soreness. Who is that? Katsuki asked as they opened the door. This is Dabi. Katsuki examined him closely. Whatever. We need to get shitty hair and the extras. Shinso and Katsuki chatted while Izuku and Dabi followed behind. Dabi wondered why they accepted him so easily, a stranger with scars and a mysterious past. You're wondering why we're all okay with this, right? Izuku asked, glancing back at Dabi. Yeah, Dabi admitted. To be honest, I don't really know. You looked like you needed help, and I could offer it. It doesn't matter what you look like or who you are. Dabi paused, considering Izuku's words. You're quirkless, Dabi noted. Izuku nodded, and they continued walking in silence for a moment. Dabi sensed that Izuku didn't mind his presence. Bakugu. Senpai. Shinso. A group of 4 friends jumped out and tackled Katsuki while greeting the others. Kirishima stood up, and the rest continued to tease Katsuki and Shinso. Whoa. Dabi flinched, expecting a negative reaction to his scars. You look so cool. I'm Kirishima Eijiro. Nice to meet you. Dabi was taken aback by their enthusiasm. I'm Kaminari Denki. Who are you, gorgeous? Dabi stared at him, surprised, while Shinso playfully smacked Kaminari. Stop being silly. Sorry about him, he's like that with everyone, Izuku said, waving dismissively. I'm Siro. Mina. They all greeted him. Dabi, he replied, and the group looked at him with admiration. That's so cool. I wish I had a cool name. Bro, that's manly. After walking the group to school, Dabi and Izuku enjoyed a comfortable silence until someone broke it. Is that Midoriya? Izuku flinched at the voice, and Dabi instinctively stepped closer to him. Izuku tried to walk faster but was stopped when a hand grabbed his shoulder. Midoriya, it is you. The voice was familiar, and Dabi could sense Izuku's anxiety. Whatever, you know I'm not really asking. No one cares about a freak like you. Dabi stepped in front of Izuku, glaring. Back off, he growled, surprising Izuku with his protectiveness. Who the hell are you? The other teen asked, taken aback by Dabi's intensity. Your worst nightmare, Dabi replied, flames flickering at the edges of his expression. The teen quickly turned and ran away, leaving Izuku in shock. That was so cool. You just glared at him, and he ran. Is this what the others feel like? Izuku mumbled, excitement bubbling in his voice. Okay. Don't you have school? Dabi asked, glancing at the time. OCRP, yeah. We need to head back. As they walked to school, Izuku admired the phone Dabi had rebuilt from scratch. You made this phone. Izuku chuckled. Yep. It was tricky, but I set it up to contact only specific people, Dabi explained, a hum coming from the device. If you need anything, just text me, and it'll show up on the screen for my costume. Right, and I'm stuck here until. Oh. You can meet me near UA after school around 3. I have to pick up the others, then we'll go to a gym Kirishima's mom works at. Normally, I'd have work, but I got today off. Kid was right, you do have a busy schedule, Dabi chuckled. Yeah, but you're welcome to come to the school and text me anytime. I heard you the first time, Midoriya. I'll keep you updated. Okay, I gotta go. See you later, Dabi. Izuku hung up and walked into the classroom, spotting Aizawa looking over papers. Good morning, Aizawa-sensei, he waved, forgetting about the wrapping on his hand. Morning, me, Aizawa paused, noticing Izuku's hand. What happened to your hand? Izuku jumped slightly, instinctively hiding it. I burned it while cooking last night after I got home. Toshi was still awake and hungry, he explained quickly. Aizawa glanced at the bandaged hand. As long as it doesn't affect you during training. Izuku nodded as he sat down and pulled out his notebooks. Dabi asked, how do ovens work? What are you doing? Midoriya replied. Never mind, figured it out, Dabi said. Are any of you allergic to anything? Dabi inquired. No. Midoriya responded. Aizawa grew curious about why Izuku would occasionally pull out his phone to answer texts. He wasn't angry since it wasn't interrupting anything, but with the bandages and the phone checks, he felt a mix of concern and curiosity that he would never admit. In the teacher's lounge, he stared at his hands. Usho, what are you doing? Present Mike asked, looking worriedly at his husband. Aizawa sighed. This morning, Midoriya came in with his hand bandaged and kept checking his phone. Midnight started laughing. Of course you notice something like that, she said, doubling over with laughter. Aizawa-sensei. Lunch rush said. Izuku paused to check his phone. What? Anyway, Lunch rush said you haven't gotten food yet. He handed Aizawa his tray as usual. Thank you, Midoriya. No problem, sensei. He walked out, and Aizawa realized he didn't know where the younger student went for lunch either. Oh wow, you're right, didn't think he actually did that, Present Mike remarked. Exactly. Once school let out, Izuku was surprised to see Dabi at the gate. You actually came. Dabi smiled a little. Yeah, well, it's a little weird sitting in your house. What were the questions about from earlier? Dabi shrugged. I have no idea what you're talking about. What? Dabi, don't be like that. Who's that with Midoriya? Midnight asked, looking out the window, which immediately caught Aizawa's attention. He walked over to see Izuku talking with someone likely around 18 or 19, with black hair and a few visible scars. I don't recognize him, Aizawa pointed out, making Midnight laugh while Present Mike gasped. You don't know your own kid's friends. What kind of father are you? Aizawa rolled his eyes. For the last time, I'm not his dad. Midnight gasped this time. What if it's his boyfriend? Present Mike chimed in. Really? You think Midoriya has a bad boy type? Can we please not talk about the types my student is into? Aizawa said, playfully hitting both of them. Come on. Tell me. Izuku begged Dabi, who smirked. Nope, you'll find out later. Izuku groaned as they finally arrived at the kids' school and waited for them. You're still here. Mina exclaimed, jumping out and attaching herself to Dabi's arm, making him jump at first but then calm down. Oh my god. You're so warm. She let go and started messing with the others again. Seems like they warmed up to you, Izuku teased, nudging him a little. Yeah, I guess. They made it to the gym, where most of them were working out, except for Shiro, Kaminari, Shinso, and Dabi. Izuku was using a punching bag with Haku holding it, Katsuki and Kirishima were sparring, and Mina was doing some stretches. Dabi was watching when he noticed something and stood up. Your stance is off, he pointed out to Katsuki. Ha! Katsuki walked over and kicked the other's foot a little before squaring his shoulders. There, now try it. Katsuki rolled his eyes but threw another punch at Kirishima, which seemed a little more powerful than before. Oh hell yeah. Dabi walked back over and leaned against the wall. I don't believe we've met yet, a voice said. Dabi jumped, not noticing someone there. My name's Sakura Kirishima. Dabi, he replied, and Sakura nodded. I assume you know Midoriya then. Do you have any previous training? That mistake was hard for any of us to notice. Dabi hesitated. Yeah, a little, he admitted. How would you like a job? Sakura asked, catching Dabi off guard. Well, you're obviously well trained if you noticed that, and we could always use a little more help around here. Plus, if you're friends with Midoriya, then you're also accepted. Dabi was still in shock. Yumak, he finally said, and Sakura smiled. Fantastic, you start tomorrow. She walked away to her wife, who had finished helping Izuku. What just happened? Dabi wondered aloud. Izuku laughed while Dabi rolled his eyes. Yeah, laugh it up, it's so funny. He calmed down and took a few breaths. Seriously. She just offered it to you. Dabi nodded. Yeah, really weird, but why did we leave the kid? He asked, remembering Shinso wasn't with them. Ichem. Oh, he's gonna study at Kaken's house with the others, he'll be back later, Izuku explained, waving his hand dismissively. Okay, Izuku said as he opened the door to the house. I also made dinner. His eyes widened as they entered the kitchen. Holy CRP. Dabi, you made this. Dabi rubbed his neck awkwardly. Yemi mom taught me a little when I was younger and you helped me so you know. Izuku laughed a little before hugging Dabi, who was shocked and just stood there. Thanks. You really didn't have to. Yeah, well whatever. The two sat down and started eating. A few hours later, Shinso joined them and reacted similarly to Izuku. Okay, so we have a guest room that you can use so you aren't sleeping on the couch, Izuku said, guiding Dabi to the room. It was a pretty plain room, minus a few hand-sewn blankets. Thanks, you really didn't have to do this, you know, Dabi said. Nonsense. You needed help, so I helped you. Now get some sleep, you're probably tired. Izuku walked out of the room, leaving Dabi to sit silently on the bed. He looked around, feeling the soft blanket in his hand before falling back onto the bed and staring at the ceiling. Where are you going? Toya turned to his sister. I can't deal with this anymore, Fuyumi. He's put all of us through so much. For what? Some dream. He squeezed his eyes shut and sighed, turning onto his side. Maybe they'll believe me. Izuku woke up the next morning and started getting ready right away. He was supposed to work with Aizawa more on how to use his capture weapons correctly without getting tangled. He walked out into the hall, making sure to wake up Shinso. He looked in Dabi's room and saw the other asleep on top of the sheets, looking almost in pain. He scrunched his eyebrows and walked closer, sitting on the edge of the bed as he heard Dabi mumbling in his sleep. He hesitated to wake him, knowing how much Dabi needed rest, but the distress on his face was hard to ignore. Izuku recalled how he and Shinso had often found it better to wake each other from nightmares rather than let them linger, though he worried about Dabi's quirk potentially causing harm. Dabi, he said gently, placing a hand on Dabi's shoulder. Wake up, it's just a dream. Suddenly, Dabi shot up, grabbing Izuku's wrist with his quirk activated. Fortunately, it only singed the bandages wrapped around it. Dabi! Izuku exclaimed. Dabi quickly released him, appearing to snap out of his nightmare. Oh no, I'm so sorry. Dabi said, looking genuinely remorseful. Izuku managed a small smile. It's okay. Just a little burn. Dabi didn't seem convinced, especially since Izuku was now hiding his hand. I'm going to get ready for school. You can go back to sleep. Izuku hurried off to the bathroom, retrieving his first aid kit from middle school to patch himself up. Once he was done, he changed into his usual morning clothes and headed to the living room, where Shinso and Dabi were already sitting on the couch. Rock and roll, buckaroos. Let's go. Shinso exclaimed, earning a groan from Izuku. You're grounded from Hero Tube, he teased. You can't ground me. I'm your older brother. Izuku noticed Dabi smile at their banter, which was a good sign. Izuku arrived at class on time, spotting Aizawa curled up in his sleeping bag on the floor. He tiptoed around, unpacking his things quietly. I wonder if I should look into a vehicle, he mused to himself. It would have to fit a few people if I wanted to bring the kids, but a van wouldn't be very nice. He pulled out a notebook and began jotting down ideas. Maybe something like a jeep. Or I could go for something smaller like a skateboard, maybe I could modify it to make it faster. He sketched out a longboard with some added features. What if I could make it like a scooter or a bike? If I use bendable metal, it could work. Maybe I could attach it to my shoes like skates. What are you doing, problem child? Aizawa asked, now awake and standing. Izuku jumped, laughing awkwardly. Well, I was thinking about transport options. I started with a jeep, but then I thought smaller, like a skateboard. If I modify it, I could make it an attachment or even skates. Aizawa glanced at the blueprint. Fine, show it to Power Loader later. His gaze fell on Izuku's bandaged hand, noticing the injuries. Did you burn yourself again? Oh. Yeah, I need to be more careful. Izuku replied, looking down. Aizawa simply hummed in response. Right, well come on, we've got work to do. Izuku's burn was a minor irritation for several reasons, Dabi would frown upon seeing it. Aizawa seemed overly concerned and didn't believe his story about it being from cooking, and the bandages rubbed against it uncomfortably. It didn't hurt much, but it was annoying. He grabbed his lunch and the one lunch rush made for Aizawa and headed to the teacher's lounge. He pushed the door open with his foot and sighed. Aizawa-sensei, he paused, noticing his teacher wasn't there. Present, Mike-sensei. Where's Aizawa-sensei? He didn't tell you. Present, Mike asked, looking up. Izuku shook his head and set the food down. He said he had a meeting with Nedzu, should be back later though. Izuku frowned slightly. Oh, okay. Power Loader Sensei. Can you take a look at a quick sketch? Sure thing, Midoriya. Hand it over. Meanwhile, Aizawa was in a meeting with Nedzu. I don't know, Nedzu. Something's up with him. Nedzu nodded. I definitely think something is going on, but I don't believe he's in danger. He would come to us if something was truly wrong, more specifically you. Aizawa rolled his eyes. Why does everyone keep pointing that out? I barely know anything about the kid. Then learn something about him, Nedzu suggested, pulling out a few papers. Why don't you ask him? I'm sure he would tell you, or you could look at his file from his other schools. Aizawa stared at him for a moment before accepting the papers. Fine. Later, as Izuku walked into the classroom, Aizawa called out, Midoriya, what was your middle school like? Izuku was caught off guard, a flash of fear crossing his face. It was, okay, why do you ask? He instinctively pulled his arms closer to his chest. I was looking over your old files, and some of the information doesn't line up. Izuku nodded slowly, his gaze dropping to the ground. It says here you were a distraction in class, tried to start fights, bothered other kids, and didn't listen to teachers. Izuku felt tears welling up. Do you mind telling me what really happened? I don't know. I'm sorry. I'll try to be better. Aizawa's eyes widened. No, Midoriya, just tell me what happened. Izuku mumbled something, but Aizawa couldn't hear. What? Why do you even care? Just look in that file. Aizawa was taken aback by the outburst, though Izuku seemed just as surprised by his own words. I'm sorry, I need to leave. Aizawa stopped him. Midoriya, calm down. Izuku hesitated, then looked up, tears in his eyes. Are you sure? Aizawa took a breath and smiled gently. I promise. Now tell me what happened. They both sat down at Izuku's desk. It started when I was told I was quirkless. Izuku recalled the painful memories of being called names and bullied by his classmates. Quirkless freak. Loser. No wonder he has no friends. He's always mumbling. It's creepy. And it got so much worse, he said, a bitter laugh escaping him. I even protected other kids from bullies, but they bullied me too, no one really cared, and no teachers stopped it. He took a deep breath, recalling the struggles he faced in middle school. He heard his classmates snicker and whisper behind their hands as he moved the flowers to his bag, where he kept them in a book. It turns out it was easier to keep them than throw them out. If I didn't keep them, it meant everything would be worse. He set his head down on one of his arms while the other rested on the desk. During class, they would throw things, insult me, or use their quirk on me, and the teachers did nothing. Aizawa listened as Izuku continued sharing his experiences, feeling a surge of anger. He wanted to confront those who had hurt Izuku and change the environment around them. What kind of hero can't even stand up to their bullies? Aizawa snapped out of his thoughts and looked at Izuku, who was still avoiding his gaze and crying harder. Kid, it's okay, Aizawa said, placing a hand on Izuku's hair in an attempt to comfort him. I was bullied when I was younger too. Izuku's head perked up in surprise. What? Yeah, people thought I was evil or had a villain's quirk, so I didn't have many friends, Aizawa admitted, noting Izuku's shocked expression. So it's okay, I didn't stand up for myself either. Unexpectedly, Izuku tackled Aizawa into a hug, leaving Aizawa momentarily confused before he returned the embrace. Aizawa burst into the teacher's lounge, glaring at everyone present. If anything were to happen to Midoriya, I would hold all of you responsible. He then walked out, slamming the door behind him, leaving the other teachers bewildered while present Mike and Midnight shared a laugh. Okay, if I do this then, Izuku tapped the top of his right foot on the ground, and a metal skateboard appeared attached to both of his shoes. Yes. He disconnected his left foot to push off and started skating around, feeling a little wobbly but excited. He tapped his foot again, making the board disappear. If that works, then so should this. He tapped his foot on the ground twice, and his shoes transformed into roller blades. He skated around with more confidence. Okay. One more test. He made the wheels disappear before tapping his foot 3 times, causing blades to appear on the bottom of his shoes. He squealed with delight, jumping up and down. Oh my god. Knife shoes. He made them disappear again, eager to experiment further. Midoriya. What are you? Power Loader rushed in to see Izuku skating around on his roller blades, clearly thrilled. Oh, you did it. Good job. Izuku beamed and nodded. I know, right? This is so cool. He shifted back to the skateboard and detached both feet to hold it before putting it back on. Can I show Aizawa-sensei? He asked excitedly. Power Loader nodded, and Izuku rushed out of the classroom. He ran to the teacher's lounge and burst through the door, startling everyone except for Aizawa, who was already aware of his arrival. Aizawa-sensei. Aizawa-sensei. Look what I made. Aizawa looked down and listened as Izuku excitedly explained his shoe attachments. Sounds good, kid. Nice job. He patted Izuku on the head, who smiled even wider. Thanks. Have a nice day. I have to go. Izuku then sprinted out of the room, leaving a stunned Aizawa and a laughing Midnight and present Mike. Izuku returned to the empty classroom and sank to the floor. I can't believe I almost did that. Ugh. Stupid, stupid. He groaned before standing up and pacing a little. Okay, doubt he noticed it. He glanced at his phone and saw it was the end of the day. I'm sure he'll forget it by tomorrow, right? Right. He grabbed his things and raced out of the school, heading toward where the others were. He knew Dabi wouldn't be there since he was supposed to start work at the dojo that day. He almost called you Dad. Midnight exclaimed, laughing. Aizawa was still a little shocked but soon snapped out of it, glaring at the papers in his hands. Shut up. Aizawa silently hoped that Izuku wouldn't be upset with him later. Izuku was sitting in the living room with Dabi and Shinso, who was currently beating Dabi in a racing game while it rained heavily outside. Why don't you try skiing less? Dabi shot back, and Izuku tried not to laugh as they exchanged playful insults. Now boys, play nice, Izuku said, smiling and waving at Inko, who had just walked in. Hi, Mom. How was work? Inko set her things down. It was good, she replied. Izuku nodded, but then she called him into the kitchen. Izuku, can you come into the kitchen? His and Shinso's eyes widened, and he stood up from the couch, following her. Yeah, sure. Shinso watched them walk into the kitchen while Dabi continued the race. What's up with that? Dabi asked, realizing Shinso wasn't paying attention. They only go into the kitchen if it's serious, Shinso noted, both of them now focused on the doorway, unable to hear the conversation. Wonder what happened. Dabi nodded, and the two stood up, walking to the entrance and remaining silent as they listened. Mom. Is everything okay? Izuku asked, placing his hand on the counter, trying to gauge her mood. She didn't seem angry, but it had become harder to read her over the years. Izuku, are you okay? His eyes widened, though he quickly masked his surprise with a laugh. Of course, Mom. Why wouldn't I be? She turned around, and he noticed unshed tears in her eyes. Mom. She sighed and wiped her eyes. Izuku, were you being bullied at school? Izuku froze. Please tell me it didn't happen, and that I wasn't a good enough mom. He snapped out of his shock and approached her. Mom, you're not, tell me, Izuku, she urged, her voice rising. He flinched back, hoping she hadn't noticed, but she did. Oh my God. He looked down before meeting her gaze again. Mom, it's not what happened. Izuku, I'm supposed to be there for you to stop this from happening. Inko exclaimed, her voice filled with concern. Stop. Izuku shouted, and it felt as if time had frozen. This is why I didn't tell you. You would blame yourself when it wasn't you, Mom. He took a few deep breaths. It was my fault. I should have told you I know, but, he paused, unable to continue. Inko waited, tears streaming down her face. I can't do this, he mumbled before turning and running out of the kitchen. He quickly grabbed his jacket, which held his phone, headphones, keys, and wallet, before bursting out the front door. Izuku, his friends yelled as he dashed into the rain. They stood in shock for a moment before Shinso turned to Inko. Mom, was it true? He asked, his voice trembling. Inko nodded, still crying. Dabi glanced between them before putting on his jacket. You stay here and comfort her, okay? I'll go find him. Shinso nodded and approached Inko as Dabi stepped outside, closing the door behind him. He looked both ways and spotted Izuku turning down a different street. Midoriya. Dabi called, chasing after him, though he wasn't sure if Izuku had heard. At some point, Dabi lost sight of him and began asking passers-by if they had seen him. A few people had, and he realized he was getting far from the house. Excuse me, he said, tapping a woman on the shoulder. Have you seen? He stopped short, recognizing her. She had white hair with hints of red and wore glasses, looking a bit confused. Yes. Do you need something? She asked. Dabi shook off his surprise and focused. Yeah, have you seen someone my age with green hair, running somewhere? Yes, I believe so. I think he went over to the forest. Dabi nodded and headed in that direction. Thanks, Fuyumi, he whispered, hearing her gasp but not stopping to explain. He reached a clearing in the woods and looked around, soon hearing the sound of someone crying. Midoriya, he called, walking toward the sound. He found Izuku sitting at the base of a tree, his legs pulled up to his chest and headphones in. Dabi sighed and approached, leaning over him to block the rain that fell through the trees. Izuku looked up, his eyes misty and confused. You'll get all wet. Dabi pointed out. Izuku managed a sad smile. So will you. They shared a moment of silence before Dabi spoke again. What happened? Izuku looked down, avoiding eye contact. I'm weak, he admitted. Dabi was taken aback but listened intently. I can't even defend myself. I almost listened to all those people. Aizawa said it's okay, but it's not. Idiot, Dabi said, gently ruffling Izuku's hair. You're one of the strongest and kindest people I know, Midoriya. Izuku glared but still wouldn't meet his gaze. Then how come I never fought back? Or told Mom? Dabi crouched down to meet his eyes, seeing the tears still streaming down his face. Because you're too nice. You hoped they would change, and you didn't want to burden your mom with something you thought wasn't important. Izuku looked down again. You even helped a bleeding stranger in an alleyway, Dabi added. Izuku chuckled softly at that and nudged Dabi's hand. Well, the stranger seems pretty nice, he said, and Dabi chuckled as he sat down next to him. After a moment of silence, Izuku leaned over and wrapped his arms around Dabi's neck in a hug. Thank you, he whispered. Dabi was momentarily frozen before wrapping his arms around Izuku's waist. No problem, Midoriya. Izuku pulled back slightly, a smile on his face. You know you can call me Izuku, right? I think we're close enough for that now. Dabi looked down before meeting Izuku's gaze again. Then you should probably call me by my actual name, he replied. Izuku's eyes widened. My name is Toya Todoroki. My father is the number 2 hero. What? You need to keep training, Toya. I will not allow another failure in this family. Endeavor's voice boomed as Toya stood with shaky legs, his arms burned from the blue flames still flickering. I want to stop. Toya shouted, tears streaming down his face as he glared at his father. What? Endeavor demanded, stepping closer. I said I want to stop. I don't want to be a hero. Endeavor grabbed his burnt wrist, causing Toya to cry out. You will stop when you surpass me, as my greatest creation yet. Toya growled as Endeavor dragged him away. That's how it always was, Dabi sighed, leaning against the tree as Izuku listened intently. I either surpassed him or he would destroy me. He glanced at one of his burnt arms. Guess I did that for him. Izuku placed a hand over Dabi's. You can't keep doing this, Enji. He's falling apart and he doesn't want to do this. Rei shouted, her voice filled with desperation as she stood by the door, trying to protect her son. He will be the next number 1 hero, Rei. Now get out of my way. Endeavor barked. No. There was a moment of silence before a loud noise echoed through the house, followed by Rei's cry. Mom! Toya threw the door open, rushing to his mother, who was cradling her bruised cheek. I'm okay, Toya, she said, though he could see the truth in her eyes. But before he could argue, Endeavor grabbed him again and began dragging him away. For a while, it was just Fuyumi, Natsuo, and me. But when Endeavor realized I wouldn't listen without a fight, he decided to have another child, my little brother, Shudo. Don't you lay a hand on him. Toya shouted, shielding a trembling Shudo. Step out of the way, Endeavor commanded, his tone cold. Hell no. I'm not letting you touch him. He's only 5. Toya glared defiantly, refusing to back down. Toya yelled, igniting his arm in a burst of flames, causing Endeavor to release his grip with a hiss. I told you no. Dabi reflected on his struggles, feeling tears well up in his eyes as he spoke. I tried to fight him off at every turn, but he always got to Shudo. Izuku remained silent, but Dabi sensed he was listening intently. Mom, what do I do? Toya asked Rei one day. She seemed taken aback by the question but responded with a warm smile. You run, my little phoenix, she said. Toya looked at her in surprise. You run until you can't stop, and you get us help, she added, caressing his cheek lovingly. Be our hero. So I did what she said. I just left one night. Fuyumi tried to stop me, but I didn't explain, I was just tired of it all. I left Shudo there. I left them all and ran like a coward. Dabi buried his face in his hands, leaning back against the tree. Izuku moved in front of him, gently pulling his hands away. No, you didn't, Dabi. She wanted you to find help, and you did. Izuku smiled, and Dabi looked at him with surprise. What do you mean? Really, Dabi? My mom has seen abuse cases before, we all have. We already knew something was happening. Now that we have a name and know people are still there, we can get them out. Dabi's eyes widened in shock before he lunged forward and hugged Izuku tightly. Thank you so much. Izuku embraced him back. Of course. Hitoshi, am I a bad mother? Shinso's eyes widened as he held on to Inko's arms. No. No, Mom, you're great. Izuku just he doesn't like to bother people with his problems. She chuckled softly at that. He could always blame any injuries and strange habits on training, right? So of course you didn't notice because he didn't want you to. She smiled and hugged Shinso. Thank you, Hitoshi, she said, wiping her tears with a small laugh. I guess you're right, but I'm signing him up for therapy. Shinso laughed this time. Probably a good idea. They settled on the couch to watch a movie while waiting for Dabi and Izuku to return. After an hour, the front door burst open with a frantic Izuku and a panting Dabi. Mom! We have to get custody of Dabi's siblings. Well, just Shudo since the other two are adults, so we can't really do that. We should also get Rei better help since she's in a mental hospital, Inko interrupted him. Izuku, honey, slow down and use your words. Izuku appeared to be gathering his thoughts, giving Dabi the chance to approach them. He rubbed the back of his neck and sighed. My real name is Toya Todoroki. Endeavor is abusive, my little brother still lives there, and my mom is in a mental hospital after everything. I need your help. Inko snapped out of her shock. So when do we start? They quickly devised a plan, talk to the police, have Dabi speak with a social worker and officer, gather proof, which Dabi had plenty of, consult with the other siblings, talk to Rei, and finally get them out of Endeavor's custody. The only challenge was that it would take time, as they didn't want Endeavor to find out. I'll talk to them this weekend and explain the situation and plan, then we'll bring you in, okay? Inko asked Dabi, who was still in shock over the plan. Yeah, that works. Izuku smiled at him, holding on to one of his arms. If you're uncomfortable doing it alone, we can have someone with you. Dabi nodded, covering his face with his hands. Thank you all so much. Shinso rolled his eyes. What did you expect? You told the one family who would stand up to an abuser that the number 2 hero was a terrible person. Dabi chuckled softly at that. Guess you're right. Inko clapped her hands together, smiling. Okay. Everyone to bed. You all have school and work tomorrow. Izuku and Shinso said goodnight, but Inko stopped Dabi. If you ever need to talk to me, Izuku, or Hitoshi. We'll always listen, okay? You're not alone. Dabi felt overwhelmed with emotion and hugged her tightly. Thank you. Inko patted his back, and when he let go, she smirked. You're welcome. Now go to bed. I know you're walking with them in the morning and then heading to work. So go. Shoo shoo. He smiled and headed to the guest room. Izuku woke in the middle of the night from a nightmare, recalling being cornered at school. He walked downstairs to the kitchen for a glass of water and jumped when he saw Shinso in the doorway. You scared me, Toshi, he laughed, approaching his little brother. He was about to make a joke when he noticed the tears streaming down Shinso's face. What's wrong? Thankfully, he didn't have to lean down much since Shinso was close to his height. Was all of that happening when you protected me? Izuku smiled sadly. Yeah, it's why I was covered in bandages all the time. Shinso glared at the ground before punching Izuku lightly in the stomach, making him double over. Don't do that again or I'll kick your butt, okay? Izuku smiled and hugged his brother. Promise. The next morning, the three of them rushed to get ready while Dabi sat on the couch, feeling a bit out of place. Okay, boys, have a good day at school and work. I'll be home later tonight, okay? Bye, Mom. Love you. Inko walked out the door, patting Dabi's head as she passed. The other two came down in their usual morning outfits. Let's head out. You have work soon, right? Izuku asked Dabi, who was heading to the door. Yeah, once you get to school, I'll head over there. Izuku nodded, and they all left together. Aizawa wouldn't admit it, but he felt nervous. He had made great progress with Izuku, and he worried that revealing the past would set everything back. When Izuku walked in, Aizawa pretended to be asleep, as usual. He honestly expected a glare or something, but when he saw the normal smile on Izuku's face, he felt a little less worried. Aizawa-sensei. Aizawa peeked one eye open. Thank you for telling my mom what happened. Izuku wasn't really facing him, but Aizawa was glad he seemed okay. Of course, problem child. He stood up and walked over to the teen. Now come on, we have capture weapon training. Izuku beamed and hugged Aizawa before running off to change into his hero uniform, leaving a smiling Aizawa to follow behind him. Chapter 15, Accidents Happen, Try Again. Izuku threw his arm out, causing the capture weapon to lash out and wrap around the pole. He yanked down, slightly bending the metal, before spinning around it. He twisted before letting it go and aiming a kick at Aizawa, which was a little too fast for Aizawa to dodge. Good. Izuku smirked, pulling out one of his Eskrima rods and sweeping Aizawa's feet out from under him. Aizawa flipped as Izuku switched to his gun and shot around, making Aizawa trip and fall. Izuku used his capture weapon to wrap Aizawa's arms to his sides. He dragged Aizawa closer before placing a foot on his chest and aiming the gun slightly off to the side, making it look like it was aimed near his head. Better, Izuku smiled before letting Aizawa up. I want you to work on your style without your weapons, don't need you relying on them too much. Oh. Are we going to work on hand-to-hand tomorrow then? Izuku asked excitedly, bouncing on the ball of his feet. Not exactly. Your last trip to the USJ didn't go as planned. Izuku laughed a little, thinking of the lecture he gave to Aizawa. So Nedzu suggested we work with the other class, he says it will help you feel like a normal student. Izuku grimaced a little. He had never even talked to any of the other students. He had run into Mirio-senpai, Tamaki-senpai, and Nijire-senpai a few times, but otherwise never really interacted with the other students. That sounds interesting. Aizawa side-eyed him as they entered the school. Izuku quickly changed back into his uniform before meeting back in the class. Stay here, I'll be back to give you more work. Izuku nodded as Aizawa left the room. Aizawa had been suspicious of the teen they saw the first time Izuku came in with a burn. When he came in with a worse burn, the suspicion only grew. Then he started showing up and waiting for Izuku to get out of work. He noticed that the man got there about 15 minutes before school was over. He would stay away from the wall and simply stand under a tree, messing with a phone. Walking out the front gate and looking around, Aizawa spotted the teen under the tree as usual. As quietly as possible, he snuck around and grappled into the tree, crouching on one of the branches to watch him before finally speaking. Who are you? Jesus. The teen fell over and looked at Aizawa, shocked, trying to get his breathing back to normal. Well, hello to you too. Aizawa glared, using his capture weapon to catch the other and hang him from the tree. What the hell? Who are you? The teen stared at him a little confused before seeming to realize who he was. Wait, you're Aizawa, right? Izuku's teacher. Aizawa glared harder at the teen, who didn't seem to react much. My name's Dabi, why? That's a fake name. Obviously, but it's what everyone calls me. Why am I hanging from a tree? Aizawa let the weapon slack, allowing him to fall to the ground. He dropped down and crossed his arms. Are you physically harming my student? Dabi's eyes widened as he stood up, shifting slightly on his feet. Look, I know you won't believe me, and I really don't see why you should, but it was an accident. I don't know why he doesn't hold it against me or get angry, but he forgives me. I'm really sorry. Aizawa didn't show any signs of emotion as the other spoke. It was silent for a while before Aizawa sighed. Should I? He was cut off by her shout. Now. She paused in shock before nodding and running back. Using her claws, she cut through a piece of debris trapping Suzuki, who stood up and used her snakes to lift the guy before they all escaped the building. Once he knew they were out, he let his capture weapon return to him as the building crashed to the ground. Midoriya. He fell to his knees, cradling one of his arms as Suzuki and Midnight rushed over. Are you okay? Suzuki asked worriedly. He tried to nod but grunted when he moved his other arm. What happened? Midnight crouched next to him, moving his jacket to examine his arms. Both were starting to bruise and showed signs of abrasions, with his right shoulder swelling more and looking worse. Let's get you to recovery, girl. Aizawa seemed to appear out of nowhere and helped Izuku up. Midnight, stay with them and figure out what happened. She nodded, already going over to the other two, who looked frustrated. Can I come? Please. It's partly my fault he's hurt, I want to make sure he's okay. Aizawa stared at her before sighing. Fine, come on. Izuku smiled at Suzuki, who smiled back and started talking more about her quirk to distract him from the pain. You dislocated your right shoulder, pulled your left, have a small fracture on your wrist, and your arms are bruised and burned from the fabric, Recovery Girl explained as she handed Aizawa the chart. I thought the fabric didn't burn, Aizawa stated, having never had a problem with it before. Normally, they don't, but his are on his arms and aren't meant to be used to hold up a building from falling on 3 teenagers. Suzuki ducked a little. I'm really sorry. Izuku had been mumbling about his decision not to seek help from a teacher, but Aizawa interrupted him with a sigh. Problem child, he said, looking directly at Izuku. It's not your fault. You did the right thing. We just don't want you doing it again, understand? Izuku nodded, and Suzuki elbowed him playfully, smiling. Hey. At least you're a hero. You showed those two. Izuku nodded in agreement. I guess. What was their problem with me? He was accustomed to some negativity, especially since people often reacted poorly to his quirkless status. They don't like being wrong or having to do extra training, Suzuki shrugged. None of the class really does. They all think they're too good for it. You showed them we aren't, though you held up a building. It was amazing. Are you okay, by the way? You got hit with debris, right? She nodded slightly and revealed a bruised ankle. I already had it checked out, though. Just a bruise, nothing serious, Izuku sighed in relief. You never told me your quirk, by the way. He hesitated. That's because I'm quirkless. Suzuki stared at him, wide-eyed. You held up a building, she said, still in disbelief. Izuku nodded, looking down nervously. Wow. You're so cool. How'd you do that? Her excitement caught him off guard. What do you mean? You're not disgusted or anything. Why would I be? You just saved my life. You're literally the coolest. Izuku smiled, feeling a surge of confidence as he began to explain how he knew it would work. After school, Izuku exchanged numbers with Suzuki, feeling grateful to have made a friend. He learned that she wasn't well liked in her class either. Recovery Girl had treated his injuries, allowing the bruises and strains to heal naturally, which meant he needed to wear a shoulder brace for a week and avoid overexerting himself. Are you okay? Dabi asked as soon as he saw Izuku, inspecting his arms for any visible injuries. Sorta. Recovery Girl healed me as much as she could but suggested I let the bruises and muscles heal on their own so I wouldn't be too drained. Dabi glared slightly, but it lacked any real malice. What happened? You have rug burns on your arms too, Izuku explained the incident at the USJ and how he got hurt. I'll burn those guys alive. They're lucky you're so nice, Dabi said, making Izuku blush and laugh. It wasn't that bad. Besides, I probably won't see them for a while. Aizawa-sensei was really angry at them. Good. If they hadn't been so rude, you wouldn't be hurt. Izuku chuckled, and Dabi smiled as they headed to middle school. Izuku burst into the living room, carrying piles of old computers, metal, and pieces of glass. What do you have there? Shinso asked, looking up from his phone. A smoothie, Izuku replied, setting everything down on the counter. I've been doing some research. The technology for this stuff has existed for a while, but no one uses it. Which is silly. Look. He pulled out his support items notebook and opened it, revealing detailed drawings of a visor, some metal hand bones, and a peculiar watch. The information was coded, making it unreadable to Shinso. What is it exactly? Shinso asked, always intrigued by Izuku's inventions. The sunglass visor should be able to see infrared, work in the dark, scan someone, and connect to my mask and those two. He pointed to the other drawings. Sounds like a lot. It is. But I can do it. After all, I made these, right? He tapped his heel, making his skateboard appear before sliding it away. The staff had agreed he could take those home since they were approved and not considered weapons. Can I help? Shinso asked, eager to work together again after a long time apart. Of course. Here, I'll show you how to take apart the larger computer. We need its screen, motherboard, RAM, and any other useful parts. Izuku handed him gloves and tools, while he worked without gloves, revealing small scars on his hands. Why do I have to wear gloves? Shinso frowned. Because I'm a good older brother. Now let's get to work. They quickly dismantled the computer, gathering valuable parts while chatting about school and missed events. You should have seen it, Mina can be scary when she wants to be, Izuku chuckled. I think Denki almost passed out. He's lucky I caught him. Speaking of the group, do you like any of them? Shinso asked, dropping his tool and staring at Izuku, who wore a mischievous smile. You. Stop that. I have no idea what you're talking about, Toshi. I haven't done anything. But you will. The moment you think I like one of them, you're going to interrogate and threaten them. I would do no such thing. I would interrogate and threaten all of you. Shinso rolled his eyes, tossing a screw at Izuku, who dodged it. Oh right. I have a shift later. Do you want to come with? You can work on schoolwork while I help people. You sure? Won't your boss be angry? Shinso asked, intrigued by the idea of visiting Izuku's workplace. Nah, she's really nice. I'm sure she'd love to meet you. Izuku replied with enthusiasm. Fine, as long as it doesn't get you in trouble, Shinso conceded. They had just finished the casing for the visor and a few other components when it was time for Izuku to head inside. Shinso packed a small bag with his things to keep himself occupied while Izuku worked. Midoriya. Glad you could make it. Mayumi greeted with a smile, glancing at Shinso. This your little brother, right? I definitely see the resemblance. She joked, pointing to their hair. Very funny, Shinso nudged her playfully as he went to the back to change into his uniform. He's just here to hang out. Nice. Sibling bonding is always good. I'll head out then. We've been slow today, just a couple of customers, so I wouldn't worry too much. Mayumi changed into her own clothes before leaving the cafe. Shinso settled at the counter and began working on his homework while Izuku wiped down the tables and assisted the few patrons present. Senpai. Izuku turned to see Jiro and Yamamoto entering and taking a seat at the counter, just a chair away from Shinso. Hey. How are you guys doing? I haven't seen you in a while. The two girls had been visiting more frequently since he helped them with schoolwork, though they hadn't been around lately. Sorry about that. I've been trying to train more, and Yamamoto was helping me. Shinso perked up at their arrival and glanced between them. Really? What have you been learning? He poured tea for Yamamoto, soda for Jiro, and topped off Shinso's coffee. We don't want to distract you from customers, senpai. It can wait, Izuku said, looking puzzled since there were no other customers in the cafe. He exchanged a laugh with Shinso. This is my little brother Shinso, he's not really a customer, Izuku explained. Both girls looked surprised, glancing between the two. You don't really look alike, Jiro remarked, and Shinso smirked, sensing her playful nature. Actually, I'm adopted, he replied, then turned to Jiro. You like MCR, don't you? Maybe, what's it to you, purple? She shot back with a grin. Oh, ouch, I'm so offended, other teen with purple hair, Shinso teased. Yamamoto looked confused but then spoke up. It's a pleasure to meet you, Shinso. She turned back to Izuku. We mostly train at home, but we've been looking for somewhere to learn more. You could train where we go, Shinso suggested casually. They're affordable and teach a lot. Izuku's been going there for a while, and after I moved in, I started going with some friends. Really? What's it called? Jiro asked, pulling out her phone to look it up. Izuku walked over to a new customer to take their order. I'll bring that right out, he said before heading to the kitchen to prepare the coffee and a cinnamon roll, which he delivered to the customer before returning to the group. You go to UA? Yamamoto asked, surprised. Yep. Class 1A, Izuku confirmed. Dude. That's so hard to get into. Nice job. Jiro complimented. Thanks. Are you guys aiming for UA too? Izuku inquired. Yes. I'm recommended, and Kyoko wants to go through the normal process. Jiro replied, her excitement evident. Well, I don't know much about the recommended route, but I'm sure you'll do amazing either way, Izuku encouraged. And if you want to train at our place, our friends' moms own it, and what is Dabi exactly? Shinso asked, glancing at Izuku. Well, he lives with us, and I think mom adopted him, but I don't really see him as a brother, Izuku explained. So like your boyfriend? Jiro teased, smirking. Izuku turned bright red and whipped around to face her. What? Shinso burst into laughter, nearly falling over until Yamamoto caught him. He isn't my boyfriend, Jiro, Izuku insisted, flustered. Are you sure? Because we've heard you talk about him a lot, Jiro pointed out. She's got a point, Izuku. Is there something you're not telling me? Shinso teased, while Izuku shot glares at the two purple-haired teens, and Yamamoto giggled. Both of you stop that, or I will poison your drinks, Izuku threatened, but the laughter continued as he rolled his eyes. As the night wore on, only Izuku and Shinso remained in the cafe. Shinso scribbled in his notebook while Izuku finished cleaning up. Suddenly, the door opened, and Shinso looked up, wide-eyed, seeing Aizawa standing there. Oh. Hi, Aizawa-sensei. Usual right. The teacher nodded as Izuku began preparing his order. Wow, Shinso whispered, loud enough to catch Aizawa's attention. The teacher looked at him for a moment before speaking. Shinso Hitoshi, right. Shinso nodded, still a little surprised that the hero was there. How are the Midoriyas treating you? Aizawa knew that Shinso wasn't in danger, but he had also learned that Shinso was a huge fan of his. Yeah, Izuku and mom are great. Aizawa nodded. You also plan on becoming an underground hero, he continued. Shinso nodded again. If you're not working for it, give up. Shinso glared a little. Of course I'm working for it, he replied, though Aizawa only smirked. Good, you have some potential then. Izuku handed Shinso the coffee and a small bag. Have a good patrol, Aizawa-sensei. The teacher left the two, and Shinso looked to Izuku, confused. He told me if I wasn't working to be an underground hero then to give up, then said I had some potential when I did work for it. Izuku chuckled and nodded his head. That's a compliment, Toshi. It means he thinks you can do it, Izuku explained. He had been around Aizawa enough to know when he was complimenting someone, giving advice, or indicating something was wrong. That was a compliment. Shinso asked with a small laugh. Yeah, he's like that. We should head home though, don't want to be out too late. When they finally got home, Inko had already gone to bed, sending them goodnight texts. Hey, you two finally got back, Dabi greeted them from the kitchen, drinking tea at the counter. Shut up, Shinso threw one of his socks at Dabi, who dodged before throwing a slipper back. I'm going to bed, your schedule is tiring. Izuku nodded and watched Shinso leave before getting a glass of water. Shouldn't you be going to bed? Dabi asked, noticing the bags under Izuku's eyes more prominently now. Probably in a minute, not really tired, he shrugged a little, leaning against the counter. I seriously don't get how you're still awake. The kid just followed you around, and he looks worn out. He didn't even do any of your schoolwork or training. Izuku huffed a little. Yeah, he set the cup down and smiled at Dabi. How was work, by the way? Pretty normal. That brat is a piece of work though, Izuku laughed, knowing who he was talking about. But he's not terrible, the others are getting good, but Lightning McQueen could use a little more work, especially with his quirk. He nodded, hoping they would be able to help him become a good hero. Maybe I should see if I can help, I think I've analyzed his quirk before. He tried to think of which notebook it might have been in. Here, let's move to the living room at least. Dabi nudged him towards the exit before Izuku went on his own. They sat on the couch and turned the TV on for background noise as Izuku quietly mumbled about what he could remember. Dabi listened silently, understanding most of what he was saying. Oh sorry, didn't mean to do that, Izuku said, holding a hand over his mouth before Dabi moved it. Don't stop, I was listening. He looked at Izuku's arms and noticed the bruising had gone down, but they were still slightly red. Still can't believe you literally stopped a building from falling on 3 kids. Izuku laughed a little. Yeah, it was terrifying honestly. Dabi looked at him, a bit confused. If it hadn't worked, they could have gotten really hurt or even worse. I knew what I was preparing for when I got old enough to understand what being a hero meant, but it was still scary, you know. Not really, I've only had to protect my siblings and mom, but I kind of do. Izuku smiled and hugged Dabi. Thank you for listening to me. Dabi wrapped his arms around Izuku's waist. Of course, gotta repay you somehow. Izuku pushed away a little but kept his hands on Dabi's shoulders. Dabi, you really don't have to. Dabi rolled his eyes with a smirk. I will anyway.